Yes. Okay, cameras worked. Again, we're all good. How's it going, everybody? This is Turn Down for Walt here, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always, SSBM Radar, and we're coming at you guys with the 4th episode of the Mixup. Really star-studded lineup we got going on tonight. Most of these folks probably need no introduction, so we'll just get straight into it. We're joined by the Crimson Blur, Young Waff, and Zoo. How you guys doing tonight?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me in Wells Boy Zoo. Welcome. Y'all are awesome. Everyone here is awesome.
Same right back to you, dude.
Yeah,
I'm
thank you
having
guys.
great. I'm a
Not,
mini
but not Blur.
crisis
Just Brandon. Sorry. I wanted to
Yes.
clarify. Just Brandon, not Blur.
So
I'm kidding. I'm
it
kidding.
was such a good environment until then. He has a better cam than me for a second. Everyone's got a better cam than me in this chat. I'm feeling a little self-conscious.
No, I'm with you, Blur, bro. I got the little,
Yeah.
little grainy lines in my shit.
man,
So,
it is what it
are
is.
we allowed to
I
curse on this, by the way, or do you? Should I?
Wait,
I should have
what?
asked.
Oh
that
yeah,
before
whatever
we
you
were
want. I
live.
don't care.
Yeah. Okay. So like, yeah, because
I just want to get it out of the way before chat notices. Radar and me are wearing the same outfit tonight. It's kind of good, but like 5 days
Accidental.
in represent.
It's not like some weird
Shout
coordinated
out to
effort.
everyone involved in that, because that shit looked like a lot of work.
Yeah, dude.
You gotta salute.
It was a time where I did not sleep for a while. It was a lot of fun just being in calls with everyone who lives on the West Coast until 3 a.m. my time, and then waking up at 6 to go to my real job every day. So,
Oof. Yeah,
but it was a
rough.
super
Walt?
good event. So,
I was just gonna say Walt's the nicest guy, but I've talked to him a little bit, just like in the DMs, and that was like the first time where I felt like, oh, I could feel his sleep deprivation just like soaking into the DMs, and I could like feel it
dude,
when
it
talking
was
to him.
so bad, man. I was in calls with like Matt and Paper Fairy and Juna, and all of them were like, dude, like all of them were very sleep deprived too, which was the worst part. So all of us are just these non-functioning zombies, and he was just like, dude, you gotta like not be in these calls for a little bit.
Amazing event.
that shit was
I just thought it was a funny anecdote.
Great way to end the year.
Yeah, for sure. But in any case, we have some pretty cool stuff lined up for tonight. In terms of general topics, I feel like there are, and Radar, you can comment on this as well. I think there are a billion different rabbit holes we can go down when it comes to some of the stuff we want to discuss tonight.
Yeah, we'll have to rein it in and see what bears fruit and what is kind of like, oh well, we got to take our time because we don't want to waste people's time too much. We don't want to have too long of an episode, but yeah, a lot of stuff to chat about. Absolutely, for sure.
But yeah, before we kind of dive right into our intro and news, I just want to bring it out for chat. We do have the Ask the Mix-Up section at the end of the show. You guys have questions for us, for anyone on the show, for any of our lovely guests, feel free to shoot them in chat. We'll save them for later, and we can go from there. So hashtag Ask the Mix-Up as well. That'll eventually be trending within the next 10 years, hopefully.
We'll get it, man.
Let's go.
But we'll get there soon enough. But in any case, going on to kind of our intro and news, just kind of like going over a few things that went on in the past couple weeks. If you guys are looking for other Melee events that are going on, I know that Melee Xanadu Online number 390 is going on right now. I believe that's at twitch.tv/UGBootcamp.
390.
That's so crazy to think that the number is that high. Actually insane.
Yeah. And small flex, but Radar and myself do commentate at that event every so often.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to see us, I
That's
think
cool.
we're supposed to go on next week actually, which is convenient that we're not doing the show that week.
That is good. Yeah, because I didn't even know that. So I'll have to check my DMs or
We'll talk
whatever.
about that
more
after.
often.
But
Yeah. All right.
390 going on today and tomorrow. I think they're 2-day events if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I think they have it Wednesday and Thursday or something like that. 389 just happened the week prior. The big thing that I took note on there was Akla won, and J-Flex beat Bobby Big Balls, which was kind of cool. I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing because J-Flex stonks are going up like GameStop right now. I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but they're
We'll be
they're
fine.
on the
They're-
rise for sure.
Hashtag
So,
where it's supposed to be later on. We'll be fine.
yes.
But yeah.
And then the last thing that I have, and then if you guys have anything, Brandon, I know that you have an event as well, so I want to touch on that in a second.
Oh yeah.
But Cody had his custom stage tourney. IBDW, of course, one of our guests in the previous episode of the Mixup, running a custom stage tournament. I believe Toussaint won the whole thing, which was pretty cool. He went on this like insane run, and ended up beating Albert in grand finals. So really cool event. I wonder if custom stage tourneys become a thing in the future.
Yeah, maybe. You never know.
Maybe.
Yeah, and then Brandon, I know you obviously have a very, very special event that deserves a lot of props first and foremost. But if you want to, tell the people more about that.
Oh, appreciate it. So basically, it's called Black Empowerment Melee Invitational. It's just a long word for a Black Summit, pretty much. It's gonna be next week. I don't think this has happened ever, and since I've been in Smash, and we want to do it for Black History Month. A lot of the proceeds, basically everything will go to charity, and just various charities for Black causes and whatnot. And a lot, like, I guess, can I talk about the premise of why I wanted to do this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Talk
so
away, like, tell us, everything.
a lot of it. So usually what happens, right, when you have these kind of events, especially regarding Black people, there's always like somebody got killed, somebody gets shot. We all feel bad. We do charity raising money for the event. I didn't want the premise of this event to be based off a tragedy regarding a Black person. That was like my biggest reason. So like, basically, this is like, while we're all here and while everybody's still good, let's host an event celebrating it. Especially considering that Black History Month is like in a couple of days. I felt like, especially with the last year going on, like, it's just been a real, for Black people specifically, it's been a real weird time. And it's been hard. And I think that, it's just something to take the damper off of all the crazy shit that's just been going on.
Sure.
Throughout pretty much since COVID, but even before that, just something to enjoy and everybody have good vibes. And especially amongst Melee, we're, in my opinion, a small demographic in the scene, but we've impacted the scene a lot. And I don't think that has really, I won't say it's gotten noticed, but I don't think it's emphasized as much. Like, every person that's involved in this event has that feeling of just being the only Black person in the venue. And there's like hundreds of people in the venue, like that feeling of isolation and stuff like that. It's weird. And, when you experience it like time and time and time again, I think something like this would help with that, to show that, like, well, obviously you're not alone, but there's also different Black people, or like on different types of spectrums, like everybody is all different, but the commonality is like, the first thing you notice is this: when people when you walk in a venue, it's gonna get noticed. And I think everybody that is African American, Black, can relate to that. And I think this is something showing that, I don't know, I want to rant, but it's just something that emphasizes, like, the good things about Black people and the struggles that we got to go through.
Sure.
Considering the time period we're in, and with Black History Month. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. That was all. As well as donate money to charity.
I mean, it's such a good idea. To me, this is just good leadership, man. I feel like, these sort of things do a lot of good work. Obviously, it's a good initiative to spend money for charity and get people to do that. But I think also, like you said, like celebrating, different voices and doing all that. What you said about, like, how you're doing it when there wasn't tragedy. I think that's beautiful. I think it's gonna be really positive and just the kind of stuff that only you can do. So I think it's just a great idea. So
Yeah,
good shit,
appreciate
man.
it. Yeah.
Can you tell us where we would go to find that tournament and who else
Yeah.
besides yourself will be it there?
Yeah. So you said, excuse me, I'm sorry. I heard the first part. I kind of talked over.
Yeah, who else is like involved, and then where do we find it basically? Besides, obviously, you're going to be involved, but
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Waffle 77, if you want to follow the stream, the tournament series is technically Rollback Rumble. So we're hosting that event. So everybody you see that on the bio, it shows the Twitter of the people involved. So yeah, it'll be those people. It'll be myself, obviously, Jade, they, them, who else? Shiggles comes up with all the layouts,
Ooh,
and
he's
my
the
boy
goat.
Walk uploads the VODs. But aside from them, people involved, like I can tell you, people competing in this event, it's a different spectrums too of like the type of players that are in the event too. So you got people like Axe and Shroom competing, right? I feel like those people would be like a given, right? To say, but then you have people. We got like ultimate players. You got like Larry coming back. You
Nice.
got Sam Sora playing. Void is playing in this event. You also got people coming back to Melee that haven't been competing at all like in a while. So like IB, right? I feel like people haven't seen
wow.
IB in so long. He's coming back to
Yeah.
play. Rain X is coming back to play.
Rain X as well. So we're getting some
Phil's gonna be in this tournament. But
That's
then
sick.
you got new players also. So like Justice, Salt, Bab Activated, like so gonna be a lot of people. Cool Kid who's like a hidden boss. I don't think people know how good Clayton is at the game.
Oh, he's
But
good.
yeah,
So
so you got a lot of different types of men. Like I mean, aside from them all being black, these are like old school players, new school players, people returning, people who like are just rising up the ranks. So like it's like just a mesh of just people. Also, Kells is coming back. King
Hell
Momo's
yeah.
coming, but he hasn't been entering anything in a
Whoa.
while, I don't think. So
That's
there's a
so
lot
dope.
of players like that. I don't know, like seeding this tournament was so hard because I had no idea where to put certain people. Oh, also Wes, DA West is
No
he's coming
way,
back.
dude. Really?
Yeah,
That's
so
insane.
yeah. So
Definitely exceeded my expectations. I feel like I was like, I'm really, curious about what I don't know
Yeah.
so far. I'm like, oh damn.
right. So and then
quite high.
Foons, he's like Foons is an older school player, but I feel like he's been like relevant in the tournament scene as of like lately, as far as like entering and stuff. But you have all these different types of players coming and playing against each other. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. If you have like West versus Sam Sora, like what the fuck is that gonna look like? Like I don't know.
That's literally
Honestly,
like over a decade between those players, which is insane.
right. Right. And then like, obviously you have like Sam Sora, someone who doesn't melee is not his primary game. But then you have someone like Wes who's just like hasn't competed in like I honestly don't remember. So yeah, like I'm curious to see what's gonna happen. And then you have players who have been like maybe a year ago they were competing, but they've been inactive now, like Kells and King Momo and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see how they'll do against like a Mog also is entering this.
Okay.
Allen is coming back. You got so many players that they literally can beat anybody at this point. I feel like I don't know. I mean, aside from like Axe, Shroom, like Toussaint, and like Billy Bo Peep, it's kind of hard to tell like what's gonna happen. I honestly don't know. But basically, that's the spectrum of the type of players you're gonna see. It's just a mesh of all kinds of different black players.
Dude, I see the old DA guys in chat still all the time. Like they're watching and they're hanging out. It reminds me of, if I can do a quick DA story. I don't know if anyone here remembers Comp. Like you guys might. I don't know if you guys have been around long. Do you guys remember DA Comp? All right. Well, he was
a
little bit, right? So he was this peach, right? And this was for Gan School 2. Blur was like, I think I was like 14, 15. I was really young. And back then, one of my first tournaments, I was using a Wavebird. All right, so I was super scrub status, right? And what happened was my Wavebird lost batteries. Like it ran out of batteries, and I was about to go against Comp up next, right? And this guy was like the nicest guy. He went to his backpack. He said, "Oh, I got batteries, man. Don't worry about it." He got me new batteries, and we played our match. He beat me, but I for some reason, like literally, like now 15, 16 years later, that kindness, like he was just such a nice guy about it, and the way he acted was so respectable and so cool that I just like I always think like, damn, that was so nice. It was one of the nicest things people did for me for Smash. Just the way he treated me, because like when I was 14, a lot of people just ignore you in the venue. You guys know how people treat like 14-year-olds. It's like, all right, kid. So I don't know. DA's dope. I'm happy to hear that Wes is playing. Can't wait for your event, Brandon.
Yeah. And thank you guys for giving me time to talk about it. I know it's it's like the idea is it's like bigger than the event itself, in a way. So I'm glad y'all gave me the time to talk about it.
Hey, out of curiosity, do you know or do you have charities in mind for what the event will be going to?
No, not yet. If there's anybody who you guys in here got any ideas, let me know. We were thinking about letting the winner pick like maybe partial like charity somewhere. So I'm thinking instead of just donating to one, we donate to like a bunch of different ones. But as of late, haven't gotten any like ideas yet. I've been like thinking about certain ones, but nothing in like particular for sure. I think I wanted to go somewhere local, regardless of where it might be, because a lot of people are from different parts in this tournament of America and Canada too. I think somewhere local would be nice, at least to me, maybe.
Cool.
One
last thing for this event. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I can't really think of esports events generally that have done this. Like, obviously, I'm not an expert, but it seems like kind of a big, event just generally in esports, and it'd be cool to see that kind of have influence in other things, like, or for this to grow and involve more games or something in the future. Obviously, I don't want to like get ahead of everything.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's just I think with a lot of people, especially if you aren't black, right? There's like a risk involved. So I see why esports probably wouldn't do it, but I guess for me, I'm like, since I'm not like in that realm, for me, there's only things to gain from this. So that's why
stuff like this is why we're better, man. Welcome.
Yo, talk that shit, man.
Absolutely.
This is how it is. I've been in those rooms, man.
I know the climate of some of those places too, man. And like, I just feel like for our best interests, especially, we should be the ones to do the event. So I can see why like a lot of them wouldn't do it, but maybe you're right, Radar. Maybe this could spawn something for other games and other places and stuff. That'd be fire if it did.
Yeah,
I was thinking like,
what's up, Zoo?
We did the commentator thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna let the other person talk. I was just gonna go really quick, and I was just kind of thinking like, I don't know, I'm sure there are some shitters like when you announce this, like people saying like, whatever negative thing about this event, but I feel like the reception overall has been pretty good is my observation. I'm not sure if that's entirely correct, but like I was kind of thinking like if this was like a year ago, like, or like even earlier, right? Like I feel like the Smash community like wouldn't get it, but I feel like overall it kind of gets it now. I don't know if that's like, to me that kind of looks like progress, but I don't know if that's entirely correct.
Yeah, it is progress in a sense, but the problem with it is like it is warranted from something bad happening, right? And like that's like kind of what I like going back to like why I wanted this event, right? Like you shouldn't have to see a black dude dying on camera to be like, damn, like this is fucked up, right? And like that's why I wanted this event to happen like now. I guess after the fact puts more emphasis on it for sure, because we all watch it. But I think with a lot of black people, that type of stuff that happened last year has been going on forever in our communities. It's just like kind of getting pushed. And I guess for me, I just didn't want something like this to come from what happened last year. You know what I'm saying? Like, just, you know, you just get tired of seeing it. And, you know, but I do think there's progress within the community in the sense of, you know, they see it. I mean, as far as shit is, there's going to be people who don't like the idea. You know, there's going to be people who got that racism lingering. You know, let's just be real. It's what it is. But I mean, this isn't intended to, you know, demean anybody or hurt anybody, and to show that, you know, we're just emphasizing, you know, it's Black empowerment, and even amongst Black people, there's spectrums too. Like it's not just, oh, you're Black and that's it. There are gay Black people, straight Black people, trans Black people, light-skinned Black people, dark-skinned Black people. Like we have these. I mean, I'm sure this happens in any group, right? But I mean, we have these dynamics amongst ourselves too, right? So, you know, we wanted to try to make an event to just like emphasize all of that, not just, oh, we're just Black. Like, you know, we're like at the end of the day, we're all people, right? So, and we're all different.
Yeah, takes a special kind of asshole to hate on a charity tournament. Is the way I look at it. Like, look, like, I mean, you're trying to raise charity. That's all that's going on here. I think of it
like, you know, those people, you know, I mean, they just, I don't know, sky hate in their hearts, man. You just, it's not worth trying to.
Always good to have empathy, but you know, goddamn, man, they make it hard. They make it hard for me.
Yeah, and you know, my initial thought is, yo, like, fuck them too, but you know, right? But even that's just giving somebody like that too much credit, man. Sure. You can't like give credit to someone who's clearly like not even trying to understand the why this is going on, right? And people will be like, well, this is like, well, if it were white, then this would be racist. It's just like, you know, it's like the idea that the Black and white playing field is the same. It's not true, man. Like that's why stuff like this can happen. So, but to have to explain that to somebody who doesn't like it, you know, it's honestly a waste of time to me, because like they're already in their head that they're on some bullshit. And like Zeus said, they're like a small minority. Like for the 5 people who will shit on it, there's like 5,000 people who like it. So
yeah,
you just gotta let them just.
Zeus right there. I haven't seen much negative from me.
Yeah.
So I don't want to shout into the wind. It's like it's looking pretty.
Obviously, when you're the person like running it, you kind of look. You notice that shit a little bit more, right? But for in general, like I'd say like the amount of like positivity and stuff is very I'm very happy about it. And what really makes me happy about it is everybody that I asked to be involved, like the players and the commentators, not one of them were like, I don't know. They're all like, fuck yes, let's do this. Like, and I'm like,
funny how they get it, dude. Funny how they get it. I wonder why. I wonder why. Like, what's the difference
like
here?
Not one of them, literally no one. And there's gonna be like 32 players in this tournament, and plus comments. I've hit like 50 plus people. Not one of them were like, I don't know about this idea. They were literally all like, hell yeah, when is it? I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I think the thing that really gets me excited about this event, Brandon, is that like, you know, the first point you made is it's like this event is a celebration and not a memorial. It's something to celebrate the good that is in this world about all of these people and these individuals that exist in our community. And that's really special. I really like that a lot. So, I mean, again, I appreciate you having me help out with at least a small portion of that. And
you don't know, man.
I want to make this event work really well.
The struggle's real, because I can come up with ideas, but like execution is different. I can't like crop up videos and shit, and I'm just like, bro, I'm panicking. So thank you for helping me, man, and all you guys for just being supportive. I really do appreciate that. I really do.
But yeah, so twitch.tv/thewaffle77 starting next week. Really cool event to look forward to. And for the people in chat, this is more of a call to action about something that Brandon and myself were chatting privately about. But if any of you guys in chat are video editors, shoot me a message at the end of this chat and let's talk, because there's some things that need to be done. There is all I'm gonna say about that. But yeah, we can kind of go into, I think, one of our first tops for the night, which in the doc that me and Radar have, I titled this topic "The Competitive Integrity of Custom Controllers." And I think
What a mouthful.
you guys know the reason why I'm saying that. I know there was a tweet from Cody that Radar you linked in the document as well, that was just kind of basically saying, like, you know, box controllers and, like, you know, box stonks are, like, you know, skyrocketing right now. It's just like this crazy thing where, you know, there's this weird situation where people think that box controllers are going to be really, really strong long term. It might kind of like shift the competitive landscape of Melee, because, you know, if they're that good, then maybe everyone needs to switch to a box controller. So let's just kind of open up the discussion and have at it.
Also worth mentioning, just to give a little bit more background, recently GoomWave released like a custom motherboard that kind of allows you to do some kind of changes to GameCube controllers as well, and also kind of make notching easier and a bunch of stuff. So there's like a couple things starting this conversation, and IBW
So excited for it.
Yeah, kind of like sort of sets the tone for some people being like, like, but he specifically said the GameCube controller needs a buff, and you know that technology might be a way to do that. Just kind of adding that little bit of detail. But what do you guys think? Any initial thoughts about controllers, just generally?
Oh man,
Might be
what do
hard
you
to
guys
just start
think
it
first. Yeah.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna kind of throw it to Blur and
They do
Brandon
this
because-
always. They do this always.
I can start if you want, Blur.
You know,
I don't mind.
Here
Huh?
it is. All right.
Wait.
I'll take
Did
it,
I
man.
do
All right,
something?
everybody
I don't
get your clip
understand.
button ready. Let's go.
Blur Bayless activated, bro.
Wait, I don't.
This is
Wait,
what
sorry.
always
And
happens.
say I hate everyone who uses a box controller. Can we get the clip real quick if we can?
No. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, right? I've been right from day fucking one. Literally day one.
All right.
There's
all
never
right.
been a point in my life where I've been wrong about this shit. And people are like slowly realizing, it's like, oh my god, he was right all along. It's insane. And that's the crazy part. And then what's even more crazy about it is we've come to a world where the players have gotten so powerful and the TOs have gotten so meek, like cowards, that I'm the only one who even fucking talks anymore, right? Like, literally, you won't see. When's the last time you heard from Joe Guy or Sheridan talking about controllers and shit? Nintendo, none of them. They don't say anything.
Hey, you
They
want
don't
me to
say
give them a
anything.
call real quick?
Dude,
or-
No, I'm telling they won't, because, and here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Let me break down the reality, right? My initial hypothesis was, at the time, if you watch the old video, that unnerfed box is an extreme advantage over GameCube controller, and over time, that's what people will turn to. I worked with hacks, and we made a nerfed rule set and all that. That happened, right? So it was progress, right? People were asking for me, Nintendo, all the people were asking for a rule set, the 525-man rule set, all that. People started posting that rule set for every tournament since, right? But here's the thing. Rule sets don't mean anything when no one enforces literally anything. And people know that now. So how do things get legal right now? Well, Gumi posts a video, be like, hey, this is what I'm coming out with. Sales are already out there. You can put it in your controller tomorrow. And who's going to stop them, right? Who's going to stop any of that? And I'm not even saying it should be legal or illegal. I'm just saying the process we have is actual garbage. Gumi decides what's legal, not any TO, not any of that. Like, people could put macros in a controller, which, by the way, the GoomWave one has a macro in it, right, to set your notch. And no one blinks an eye. Like, it's like nothing is out of the table anymore. And I don't even know what the line for cheating is for people anymore. Like, what's when it goes too far? And so for me, it's a bit of frustration, because it's a problem that I feel like we did our best job to fix, which is we put a consistent universal rule set out there that said, this is what's allowed, this is what's not allowed. It's fucking like 30 some odd pages. It's long. It's linked at every tournament. I don't know what else you want from it, but then no one follows it, and it's never respected, right? So I don't like, there's actually not a line, and I expect that as players wake up to that more and more, for us to see more explicit cheating, right? Like, I don't see why they wouldn't. And I don't think the TOs care enough to fix it. I'm literally the only one who even talks about it, I feel like. So, and that's where we are.
This is almost like a philosophical discussion on like how do you govern like this body, this nation of like Smash that's like one distributed and two like just
it's funny because we talked about on the oh sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say like there isn't that you could make the conversation go that direction of just like because when we were talking about custom stages last week, and people were weighing in, and I don't want to derail the conversation in that direction, but one of the comments I got on my video about the same topic was people saying stuff like, it's crazy that top players are the ones who kind of like dictate what goes on in the scene. Like a player goes, hey, I'm doing this, and then it just happens. And
it's okay
my
at that point.
It's sort of always been that way. But is that a good thing, bad thing? That's what I'm kind of wondering.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was it was actually about our last episode as well. But we talked about how custom stages fell into this like slippery slope fallacy that we got into, but I feel like the controller debate is like even more of that issue, because it's like, if one thing becomes okay again to like, a top player who seems to have a lot of agency over what is and isn't okay in a tournament setting, then who's to say that, we don't continue snowballing that more and more until it just becomes completely out of control.
Right.
Well, you don't think it's out of control right now?
What
more has to happen for us to think it's out of control?
Like, I mean, well, Blur, what would you want out of this then? Like, just
let Brandon talk. Brandon, you say your piece first, and I'll answer.
Well, no, I was just saying, I think the difference between custom stages and controllers, though, even though I agree, like in that aspect, like where's the line? With custom stages, you can clearly look at it and it's tangible. Like, oh, this is not fucking like what I'm used to seeing. Like with the controller, there's like in some aspects, like you were saying, Blur, like there's no way of knowing. Like somewhere you could just put a macro in a controller and fucking or Arduino or something, and you got no idea, and they could just let it rock. And sometimes the TOs can even if they did understand the rule set, like you were saying, what if it takes by the time they catch it, it's already like grand finals, right? And then it's like, well, fuck, it's too late. Like it happened, right? And like that's to me what makes controllers and boxes and stuff like that more difficult to govern, because like how can you make like a obvious identifier of what is going on? I guess with the box, it's clear because they're using a fucking box, but like with the controller, it's like, dude, you gotta like thoroughly examine every controller to find that shit. Like it's just it'd be impossible to do that if you were a TO. I think.
Hey, real quick, a couple things because I don't have alerts on for this. Thank you to Ginger for raiding with 137 people. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, let's go, Ginger.
We're getting way more people in here.
While we're on the side topic and people are raiding in here, actually, give a quick shout out to the homie Firepuff12, who posted our stream link for this episode on the Smash Bros Reddit and the SSBM Reddit. So upvote there, kind of get it to the front, and then maybe we can get some more people in here. And for everyone who's raiding, ask some questions to the chat, because at the end of the show we're going to kind of take whatever questions you guys have or don't have, and we'll just keep talking at the end. But in any case, I want to know what you want out of like a controller rule set then, if that's the case, Blur, because you seem to think that the line has already been thoroughly crossed at this point. So like,
what do you mean what I want out of controller rule set? We wrote a 30-page document.
I'm saying like what needs to happen though? Is it like
what needs to happen is people have to follow the rules.
Okay.
And it's like whether it's a modder or if you're a controller maker or if you're a single player, read the goddamn rules. Sure. Right? I think they're relatively fair. Most people actually agree that this is relatively where the line should be for what it's worth, but we just keep crossing those lines and no one's enforcing those lines. And I know, for example, whether through its ignorance or not, like a lot of box controllers let you remap buttons a certain way. And some of those configurations, like having 2 buttons for A, for example, that would be illegal, right? But if you didn't read the doc and if you didn't read the rules, you wouldn't know that, right? And I think people have been way too loosey goosey with it. You know how Smashers are. We're all so chill when it comes to tournaments and stuff. But look, bottom line is like when it comes to competitive integrity, when your top players are saying we feel like we have to change controllers or we can know we're basically at a massive disadvantage, then as a TO, you got to take that a little seriously. And I actually don't think they're lying or it's untrue. Like there's latent advantages to these control schemes, and you have to balance them out. Maybe the nerfs that we did weren't too far, but I'm just sick of being the only one talking about it, you know? And it feels like when these things are put out there, when these modifications or stuff put out there, if you look at the Reddit, the Twitters, whatever, everyone's just like, cool, awesome, I can't wait, I'm gonna order it. And that's like it. That's where like the fucking line goes. The brain, like no one rubs two brain cells together to figure out like, well, you know, is this a good idea? And that's the end of it. And so for me, it's like, look, if I'm the only one who cares, then all right, man, you guys can have at it. You know, if you're gonna win tournaments that way, God bless. But don't tell me that, you know, oh man, shield dropping came into the spotlight because you know, people just got so good at it. No, shield dropping came into the spotlight because we mod the game to make it easier, and then we notched our controllers to make it even easier, and then we released controllers and mods and things to make it brain dead easy, right? Like things have changed with the game, and no one's accepting it. Similarly, it changes game balance, right? Like with the box, like Fox Tech becomes way more consistent. And you know, sure, in some ways it's harder, but in some ways it becomes more consistent. These things end up mattering, and that's why a lot of Fox players feel like switching the box is good for them, right? And similarly, it's very arguable that Peach is just a superior character with box, right? So, like, I think these things matter. We're seeing more of the tournaments be used with these controllers, and I'm curious if you guys would ever consider switching. Like, what your thoughts on it are? But like, the discussion's just been so tepid, I think, since a few years back that like no one's been about it. I mean, our tournaments are free right now, so I kind of get it. Like, even if you cheat, you're making no money. But people still would want to, right?
I have a question about this, like from the organizational perspective. Like, you know, if the issue of having, you know, if there's scrutiny on controllers and like, you know, there is this rule set in place that like clearly dictates you can't have a controller that does X, Y, and Z, for instance. The onus falls on the TO at that point, right? To kind of enforce that. But then, you know, what does that mean for, you know, when in-person tournaments become a thing again? Like, is that something that requires more staffing at that point? Like, you know, for a 2,000 person major, it's unrealistic, I think, to try to be able to enforce that.
Maybe. I mean, the question is like, if it goes more players, go ahead.
I think you should code something. Since we've been doing all this shit, I think you should code something in the game to let you know what kind of controller is being used and like what the fuck the specs are or whatever.
Well,
that'd be to me the easiest way. Like you know how they have Specky for your computer, like that app. Just like that with controllers, bro. Just in the fucking game somewhere, like an option you could pick to where it's like, oh, it's this guy has a fucking Arduino in his controller, or this person, you know. I mean, people would try to people would try to find ways around that shit for sure, but at least it's a start. And like, cause like you said, you can't staff like 2,000 people, right? But like, or like for a 2,000 man tournament. But if you had like a little, you know, fucking thing that went off for this guy's like clearly like cheating on his, you know, like a fucking metal detector or something for the game. And that'd be kind of wild too. But I mean, I think that's more reasonable than like fucking like opening controllers and like.
And there's benefits too, because like we can make some of the stuff that people have to pay for modifications for. We can lower the entry barrier. Like for example, we can add button remapping to the game. Like why not have it on the software side?
The GoomWave, like that was one of the things I wanted to say. I'm pretty sure that like the new motherboards can be remapped, which I wasn't aware that was like for sure banned because I thought box controllers could do it.
That's legal ever since box controllers became legal. A lot of things became legal when box controllers became legal because it's like if they can do it, then GameCube controller users should be able to do it. So button remapping is legal. It's like, why don't we have that on the software side? So when you plug in, you can just change your button layout a little bit, or when you're on Slippi, you can just change your button layout instead of having to pay a modification to it. But there's also like, if you look at the GoomWave controller, like I'm excited for it because now my pivots will be consistent. One of my least favorite things about GameCube controllers is that pivoting is never consistent. It just dies in 2 months. If you're a marksman, you know the struggle, right? I'm excited for like the 5th, 6th Marth buff in a year. That sounds great. You know, we got consistent dashbacks UCF. Sounds good. They added Frozen Stadium. Now I have 2 FDs. I'm happy about it. And now they're gonna give me consistent pivots. Shout outs to me. Can't wait for a more centralized metagame. It's gonna be Marth Fox all day, baby. You know, but like that is the thing, right? Like super consistent pivots. Like that is as big of like as big of a buff to a controller as you can ask for. Similarly, more consistent shield drops, all these things that adds. I'm not even necessarily against it because I do think a lot of these things are stupid to exist in the first place. But I also understand that like they have real like ramifications in terms of the game, right? And I'm for the progress, but I want it to be codified. I want us to like treat it like adults and treat it like we're a little bit more than the grassroots community that we actually are. You know, just for a little bit, just for these sort of things.
I'm curious, Zoo, you haven't said anything in a while. I'm curious to hear kind of what you are thinking about all this.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking back to like at least my experience with something kind of similar. So this is like really early days of controller modding, right? When like shield dropping first became a thing, and then people were like shield drop modding their controllers, literally using like a file and like grinding the notch, right? And like, you know, it was a really, really big deal. Your success kind of depended on whether or not you had that notch in a lot of cases. And like, I literally hit up Kedano and we did like an hour tutorial and I learned how to do that. And I just immediately started winning matches, right? And like that sort of a thing is very gatekeepy. And it just feels really bad when you can't do certain things due to some like external factor, right? It just sucks as a player. And especially now when there's, well, more money on the line and it's like a lot of your, you know, a lot of these players are doing it full time. It's like their livelihood, like their ranking and their perception from the community, which is basically like their income, their star power, right, is dependent on that. So like in terms of making controllers better and just like to a point where you can get the things that you want without having to actually like I guess just like you don't have to struggle to get those things. I think that's great. And it prevents like, you know, the rich from having those advantages only. But obviously there is a point where it's like, okay, you're affecting the integrity of the game, or if there are certain things that like only certain people can have, like I think that's the line that we have to figure out as like a community, right?
Yeah, like can it be fair to everyone?
I agree with
and
that.
I mean it's also a little bit glossed over because like here's how it's always presented, right? Hey, these are things that are hard to do consistent on a regular game controller. Those things are stupid. And I most of the time usually agree they're stupid. We made a new system or design that makes those things consistent and easier to execute. But that's never that second part is never the words used, right? Because that's what it means, right? Like ultimately, you move to this and it's easier to execute. And then furthermore, what's also never described is that if you had made a strict comparison, like isn't the GoomWave thing categorically superior to a regular motherboard? The answer is yeah. Like in what world is it not like straight up
someone
superior?
Explain why it is though? I'm not super familiar with this whole announcement. And does anyone know how much it costs?
Like a lot of it's kind of hard to cover all the details, but it like allows you to remap buttons. It allows you to really consistently get kind of notch data, as well as like make I think the notch range a bit like more easy to kind of reach. Like it takes a lot of like, I guess a good way to sum it up would be picture the perfect GameCube controller in terms of like consistency across multiple aspects of it. So like say it's good for pivots, it's good for shield dropping, it has good dashback with whatever. It kind of has all of that. And then a lot of the stuff, because there is a whole like legality section of it, a lot of it is kind of like, well, the box has this, so why shouldn't we have this? That kind of is, I don't want to oversimplify, but that is sort of a lot of the argument. You know, this is something, I think it is, I should double check, like GoomWave.com. I want to say that people can find out more, but
there's a video on it too. That's like pretty informative.
GoomWave.com.
Okay.
I'll link the video too, but it just, it would allow you to do some stuff that you just previously could not do, and then also address a problem which I think everyone in this call would agree with, which is that like GameCube controllers like kind of suck. They sort of lose their effectiveness pretty quickly. So in some ways, I look at it and go, this is a good thing. But I think Blur is kind of correct that, there's a lot more that could be said, and it feels sort of like we as a community kind of just go, okay, I guess this is happening now, and kind of like, cool, So
Goomy is king. He decides what everyone uses and charges. What was it, 200? That everybody's got paid 200 to the Goom King. I like it. Shout out to my boy.
I want to touch on what Zoo was saying, because I agree with your perspective, Zoo. I think playing devil's advocate a little bit in this conversation, it's kind of like, I would argue that like, yes, it maybe it is gatekeepy to have to like buy a controller, for instance, that can allow you to play Melee at a competent level. But at the same time, again, devil's advocate here, because I do kind of side on this as well. I think that the fact that controllers like that exist contribute to like the overall Melee ecosystem, where like people do make a living off of controller mods, like fresh controllers, controller builds, custom controllers, what have you. And it's also not all that uncommon across other games. For instance, like if I want to play Street Fighter at a competent level, I need a fight stick, most likely, and that costs probably well over $100 as well. So it's not like the price.
I mean, what
the difference is that
you can say it. They're the only ones making money. You think the players are making money? Our tournaments are free. Brandon, you making money from
again, yeah. Devil's advocate here. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm
Didn't think so. No, I know, but I'm saying, like, look, there are genuine economics behind this. There are so many facets. There are pros to what they're doing. Like I said, as a Marth player, the fact that I have to get a new controller every freaking 3 months is infuriating, stupid, and I hate it. Because the pivots degrade, and this character needs pivots more than any other. So, like, if you were a Zane, like Zane, literally, I heard him get a new controller end of December. He's getting a new controller now. Like, that's how quickly he switches them. Because pivoting is the stupidest thing of all time. Like, it's just so bad.
People don't know, these controllers are like hundreds of dollars to get modded, and there's only like a handful of people in the entire world that do it. And not to like call people out, but it is kind of like a top player privilege thing too, where if you say to kind of the few people that do these, like, hey, can I get this done? Maybe they bump you up in a queue or whatever. Whereas if you're an average person, and you say, oh, I want a controller, and it's prohibitively expensive. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I really see as kind of like, it would be good to get rid of that. So I see that.
Another thing I was gonna say, my bad, Blur. I do think if they do make a universal controller, I also think the development, this is just me though, should be universal. I think you should have every controller modder, every box person, and the people that are even against it and for it, all in one room and talk about it. Because like, clearly, like, we're having this conversation of where is the line, but like, I can make a controller and be like, well, it's good for everyone, right? But you're just kind of taking my word for it at that point.
Well, so where does the Panda controller come in then?
That's honestly,
All right. Well, wait 1 second.
Yeah.
Here's a question: Why isn't all this stuff open source? Right? How the hell are we going to legalize all this stuff when we don't have the code to it? None of the box firmwares. I don't think the Goomy stuff is that open source. None of this stuff is open source. And you're telling me this is going to be our new legal standard? So
I think we know why that is. It's just a question of whether or not that is like something we want, which is kind of.
Why are we cool with that? Why are we cool with literal code being run in our motherboard?
Everyone should be able to see it, or at least to see how it's made, just so they can,
Yeah, not having open source for something as integral as a controller is pretty rough.
I think I get it though, because, like, to play the devil's advocate. I know we're kind of bouncing around, and sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're good. You're good.
If I can see the argument that someone like Hacks or Greg Turbo or these people who have made kind of different box models, if the source code is open source, then isn't the only thing that differentiates the product the materials, which then they would go, okay, well, we just buy the cheapest one, which again is probably good for us as consumers. I'm not saying necessarily that's like the right thing, but I'm sure that's why people who make these controllers would be pushing against it, because they see it as kind of their IP essentially. But it again, I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying this is what they would say.
Their IP, bro. I'm sick of having like legality discussions where no one really knows what's going on. Like, all of our knowledge of what's going on in GoomWave, for example, is from his YouTube video. You're telling me that's like what sporting ecosystem, what anything will allow that to be like a standard for competitive integrity? No, if you're so worried about your proprietary information, at least like the code should be open to the rule makers, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think that's it. I think it legit should be open source, and he should be making money on. Well, he has a system for printing out motherboards which do this thing, right? I'm sure he would sell just fine, right? And ultimately, it would give us a lot of faith that it follows a rule set or follows some sort of procedures. Obviously, we'd have to change the rule set to make it legal, because at the moment, what's being done there, which is a software modification on the motherboard, which like allows for a whole bunch of things. Again, includes a macro in it, very technically. These sort of things like aren't legal right now. And you can't verify how legal something is if the firmware and the code behind it isn't open to everybody. And like maybe that should just be the hard line where it's like, bro, if you're not open source, you can deuce out. Because I at this point I'm getting really sick of it, where I'm listening to hacks, the Frame One people, Gumi, all that. I'm taking them on their word, like, and when they have a financial incentive to sell their product, like it's just nonsense.
No, I agree. I agree. And the thing is like, without trying to cause more drama, but like people involved in these have like pretty strong opinions about this. So if you say like, oh yeah, I think X about Y, like, and the thing that, we haven't touched on yet, which I think is important, is like the one argument that I think very much is completely relevant is I can't play Melee on a regular controller, or like it really, really bugs my hands or whatever. And if, at least for me, I can speak for myself that like I want people to be able to play Melee. I want, if they're really, really, like the GameCube controller kind of sucks ergonomically. I'm not saying that these box controllers are perfect. I think they're kind of marketed to be perfect, and it's like that's an oversimplification. But what do you say if people go, hey, this is my only way to play Melee, and if you ban this or we change this, I can't? What do we say to those people?
Dude, what are you talking about? I love having broken wrists.
I don't know. I guess, yeah, I think you like what Blur said. Like, you don't necessarily have to get rid of like boxes and stuff, but you make the code or whatever open to everyone so they can see what entails these boxes when they're being used, right? So it's not like they got macros here and macros there, and if they do have a macro, is it within the context of like the integrity of the game? So like, is it just for pivots? Is it just for shield drop?
Yeah, but there's literally no feasible way to do that in a tournament setting. And it's like from like when you do, like, for instance, for my job, like we have inspectors who look at implants. We get these tiny 3mm dental implants, right? And it's like even then, like 100% inspection in most cases is just very, very not only annoying, but just not feasible most of the time.
It's not practical. It takes too much time.
You can't look at all that stuff reasonably and complete an order in time. It's just like the same thing. How are you going to one by one go in, especially for majors where it's multiple day events? The people are coming and going as they please. Are you going to have a check-in at the gate to like say like, all right, open her up, like let's see if you have something in here?
Games have anti-cheats, man. That's the only way.
Yeah,
it's got to be on a software level. Now someone's got to make it. Like, I don't think anyone on this call is going to make it. So it's like we're kind of calling on someone to do it. So shouts to someone who does it if they ever do it.
I need that reference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And the question is, in the absence of an anti-cheat, and in the absence of knowing what these things even do without taking other people's words, like why are we so open to legalize them? Right? Like, why are we so open in the absence of that stuff? Because what I think would happen, because these guys have a financial incentive, right, is that anti-cheats would get developed if we force them to be developed, right? Because what's happening, like, and this is not peanuts, right? Let's do a quick model. Everyone could do napkin math, right? How many GameCube controller users do you think there are in the Smash community between Ultimate and Melee? Right? There's might be over 100,000, right?
I think
how
it's
much
easily over 100,000.
How much?
Make it 200, maybe 150, because most of those players got two controllers.
Right, maybe 150. They might buy two. They might. It's it's definitely more than 100,000. By the way, it's actually considerably more, right?
Oh,
Let's just
I think we have at least 100,000 melee players, let alone ultimate
alone.
players.
Yeah, we got way more, right? The answer is actually way more. But let's just be charitable, right? 100,000, and then you have $200 controllers. How much do you guys think it costs to print a PCB?
A couple bucks.
Not much. Not much. Not much. So large margin. Let's roll the mental math. There is incentive for that. Like, they should be the one making the anti-cheats, and then they should make it open source so we can double check to make sure the anti-cheats work, right? But like this loosey-goosey shit where they don't even have to go through the hoops. They don't have to even go through what it would take. And instead of YouTube video, and I'm releasing them now, guess what, guys? Like, that can't be it anymore. I'm not even trying to give my boy Goomy trouble because I actually like the guy, and I think a lot of what's going on here is dope, right? But I'm really more talking about our process as a community and how no one seems to care except for one human being, which I feel like is me.
Yeah, I don't think this is like a bashing controller discussion at all, for the record. I think this is just more so like this.
I'm trying to pivot, so I'm in. You know,
I mean, this is like if we were talking about sports, it's like, what's the line between supplements versus like HGH and steroids, right?
Sure.
Like where, and at some point there has to be like a line where it's like, all right, this shit is just cheating, right? Versus like, we could let it slide, but so I get what Blood's saying. If you look at like sports or whatever, in any type of like NBA, NFL or whatever, they all have these kind of parameters for testing and just, making sure players aren't doing shit that they shouldn't, putting things in their gear that they shouldn't. So,
yeah,
I mean,
gear thing is huge. Like, if you look, like, I work at Lululemon, and we have an R&D department, and I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about. So, but the point is they've talked about people who work there about how, like, one of the guys I think used to work at Speedo, and they made a swimsuit that got banned because it was like too fast, and I know Nike and other running shoe companies have been like, they're trying to make like the fastest fucking shoe, and
literally illegal. Not really.
So Brandon's right that it's like there's whole people kind of dedicated to kind of regulating that and making sure that there's not like cheating and stuff.
I actually wanted to ask a question out of curiosity. So thank you for bringing up like the R&D aspect of things. I don't know if any of you have an answer to this, and I'm sure none of us are fully qualified to answer it. And a disclaimer: I don't want to like dive deep into this because this is like a legalese type thing. But like, is there any patent protection on these designs that have been going on?
That's a good question. That is a great question. I have no idea.
The GameCube controller should be patented, but they won't.
Right, but anyone who in my experience working with patents, like anyone who designs like a motherboard, for instance, like right. I feel personally that there is an argument for Goomy to patent his motherboard in terms of more so like a process patent as opposed to a product patent, because you could frame it in a sense that it functions differently and it performs differently than the other motherboards for this controller out on the market.
But by the way,
there's actually an argument for that though.
I saw earlier in the chat, because I'm side-eyeing it, right? People talking about, if you open source it, someone else can just take it and make a new controller. I'm like, bro, you guys don't know how open source licenses work? Like, you can open source it, license it so no one else can use it, but just have it open for transparency, right? Now, anti-cheat being open source, I get that might help people cheat better, but maybe it could be closed source, but open to, again, any tournament organizer who wants to see it or something like that. Either way, the transparency level has to go from where it is now, which is not at all, to where it needs to be, right?
But for the record,
YouTube
you can
videos
also
don't cut it.
patent code too, so it's like you can still open source the guts of whatever software you're making, and then just patent the things that are unique to your product. But
yeah,
I know this is probably a bit of like an abstract question, but one of the things I think of when I hear like cheating and controller stuff is like how hard do you think that would? So say taking out Brandon's solution of just like you plug it into a little Slippi anti-cheat device and it goes, controller is valid, whatever. How obvious do you think it would be that someone was cheating? Like, of course you could do subtle things like a little SDI controller button or whatever, but like that's just going to a couple inputs left or right. But like, wouldn't you be like, man, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about and he's getting top 8 every tournament? Or do you know what I mean? Like, or we're seeing these infinite wave shy and stuff on Peach, and it's just kind of like no one else is getting this. Like how subtle would this have to be for us to be missing it while also being impactful enough that it's giving people an advantage?
No, I mean, dude,
Super
a ledge dash
Pichu was a
macro would
thing.
be hella
Yeah.
easy. A ledge dash macro would be so easy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, all right.
that would
I'm just
not be
looking for
hard. There's like tons of macros that'd be good, but like it's funny because like people draw the line of macros where most of the most broken things you could do in Melee don't even need macros. Like macros aren't like necessarily the most broken things you could do. Like think about things that you have a really hard time being consistent with, and you could probably do it without a macro, but with like some of these sort of modifications that you could do. In fact, like the analog to digital switch naturally is maybe one of the biggest advantages you could do. All of a sudden, instead of 2-3 fingers, we're using all 5. That's a big deal. All of a sudden, there's no longer travel distance, right? Between control stick movements, C stick movements, between buttons, like all these sort of things, they're latently advantageous. That's why we thought that nerfing the boxes, if we're going to keep them legal, was a good idea. But if people are still saying that, okay, I should go to the box, anything else is completely irrelevant. Like if that's how it feels to top competitors, then it's clearly we haven't gone far enough, right? Like then it's like, okay, then maybe this is actually not a tenable solution, because I don't think what anyone wants is it to be the only standard, right? Not only is that a huge entry barrier, because I think learning box is way, like if you're a noob, right? Like if you're just a new player and you're told this is how people play, like I think it's off-putting, because if I was a new player, I'd be like, oh, okay, so I have to learn this way. Then I start playing and I'm like, I can't even do anything, right? If you're hyper new. And so I don't think anyone wants to be the only way. We want to have like a relatively equal, fair, competitive environment. And it doesn't feel like we have that balance right now.
I think the thing about that question, Radar, that gets really scary in my perspective is if there are no, software side anti-cheat, detections in place, some like fucking mastermind could create, a ledge dash macro, for instance, as an example, but you could also have some type of like very seldom human element like programmed into that macro, so that it begins to, all of these things begin to look more and more realistic, because it's like, okay, he's not hitting this 100% of the time, he's hitting it 98% of the time like a human would, but every time he does hit it, it's absolutely perfect. And then you get really into like the rabbit hole of like how far could people go with these things, and that's the part that kind of like gets me freaked out about all that stuff.
I mean, people kind of feel that way about the box right now, right? I would think people feel that way about boxes in general, like especially if you don't understand like what's going on. You just like, I see hacks do a ledge dash, like, damn, bro, it's crazy. Like,
yeah, the thing is, it's not hard to create macros either, and it's also not hard to create a macro that fails with some with some regularity of like, or some randomness of probability. Neither of those things are very difficult to do.
It's more to prompt discussion, not because I've like not thought about stuff myself. But yeah, I agree. I think it's tricky. I'm trying to think about like what would, if we had a box person in a call right now, what would they be like actually about, so
yeah, for sure,
make sure they're represented.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like, it feels like the amount of perspectives and any one given call that's represented, is always tough to get everyone's output. Considering like people misconstrue my stance all the time. I just want things to be fair. I helped legalize these things, right? In the rules that we put out, they're legal, right? But it's more so that I feel like when I see, like Brandon said, the majority of players look at it and be like, damn, I guess they can do that, and maybe I should switch. And also, like, when I feel like right now, I think it's hard for me to separate the fact that the core of what it is, which is you can use more fingers and you have no travel time. Travel time, the biggest thing, makes it hard for me to know, like, could we actually nerf it to a point of equalness ever, right? Because end of the day, you're going to have a faster, let's say, F tilt, because you don't have to move the control stick, to that precise coordinate. You just press 2 buttons down on a controller, right? Like, and that's just naturally going to be a thing. And I don't know when, and how you can never get to equity with that.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Maybe it's a good time to actually segue into the next topic. Well, unless you think there's kind of more stuff to be said here, I do think to make it clear, yeah, none of us are necessarily saying we should like ban boxes, at least not as far as I'm aware of. It seems like Blair's kind of clarified that as well. I think they're a good thing. It's just kind of like I think maybe there could be more discussion around it.
Yeah, I definitely think the discussion does not end here. But this is probably a lot more than people have been talking about in recent time, which is a good thing.
It probably does, Walt. What do you mean discussion doesn't end here? When's the next time someone's going to talk about it? What other shows are there?
You want
Who else is going to talk about it? Blair's going to talk about it. Blair's going to talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, I'm fucking sick of it, man. Why? How many times did I put the team on the back? You know, like, can people actually do this shit, or is it like it's like fucking pulling teeth, man? What do you mean a discussion doesn't end here? Don't look at the camera and say that. Don't lie to the people.
All right.
I think it's a communication issue, though. Like, I think like some of these things, like, you know, maybe this is my own bias, but I look at this and think like, we need a YouTube video that's well designed and well written that like outlines stuff and explains it. So, you know, because I think some people just like they don't get this, and I don't know. It's like a complex topic. Again, I want to throw to Zoo just because I feel like you're not speaking up, and of course, don't feel like pressured to. But if there's anything that you're thinking,
yeah, I mean, I think you know, thank you, Blur, for thinking about these things, and you know, the TOs out there. I imagine it keeps you up at night, but like, you know, maybe it's because I'm not a competitor anymore, and I do understand that like, you know, there are people who do this full time who like think about this stuff, but like, I personally don't. I honestly personally don't even care. Like, I just personally don't see it being like, I don't personally see it affecting me, right? Like if I play Slippi, and even if someone has like a macro or something, like the really obvious cases that we're talking about are like a macro that lets you ledge dash, right? That's really obvious. I don't see people doing obvious things like that. And if they do, I imagine they'll get caught and they'll just get like peer pressured out of the community, honestly. Like things like that have happened before, right? And I feel like with like the more subtle legalities and things like that, I kind of feel like we'll just like figure it out as a community. Like usually people are pretty open about the things that they do. Like, you know, Gumi's very open about what features are on his controller, and at least for me as just like a consumer, like I'm kind of like you, Blur, like, oh, give me a controller that has pod, which is, you know, like that has pod dash back, pod pivots and no snapback. Like give it to me. I'll just play. And you know, if someone does something crazy with it and I face them on unranked or ranked when it does come out, like I don't care.
Yeah. And that's Zoo just represented the average smasher, and this is why we're
exactly. Because thank you.
Because Zoo, and I love that you did that because it's the truth. That's how most people are right now. And because it's like, okay, he put a YouTube video out, sounds good. I'm trying to get pivots. I'm about it. You know, and also like there's a latent trust in it, but you just have to look at like the history of every competitive sport and esport to look at how often cheating happens, right? Like we're not special. We're not like, oh, but we all play for pride, for no money, and like, so we're not special in that regard. Like we've even had cheating in our past, right? But people will do it, and especially if we're making it as open and easy as we are making it. We're making it so easy right now. It can't be easier.
But I do agree with Zoo, though, in that I think that this is something where it's like we're just going to let it rock, and then when something like egregiously bad happens, like at that point, you know, the floodgates open and we have like the true discussion of where do we, you know, tighten up on certain things.
Okay, so do you think, let's say, that if what is egregiously bad? Like, I guess the question is like, do you guys feel like is it to a point where someone has to have a ledge dash macro for you to feel like they're cheating?
Well, the problem is it's all subjective. It's like you might think that a ledge dash macro is unfair, and like some like mid-level, and we'll get to the mid-level, high-level discussion shortly. But you know, like average Joe Smasher Luigi dude 72 might be like, I don't give a fuck if people can ledge dash. Like I'm still just gonna wave dash down smash them. you know, I think the big issue is that people value certain things differently, and that's like where Cody's tweet comes into play a little bit, where he said like certain tech becomes way easier. And I think the general consensus for like the box controllers that I've been seeing is that people say like the hard tech is really easy and the easy tech is really hard. So it's like, is that a fair enough trade-off? Maybe, but it depends on who you ask. If you ask me,
I think the issue that I kind of see like the Blur's touching on a bit is if we got to a point where like everyone in the top 5 or something switched to box controllers, like box style controllers, like I would see that as a bit concerning, especially because I think as a community we don't really have like good top-down information dissemination. Like if IEW goes on to Twitter and says like, "Yo, the box is broken," like it's not like there's kind of some forum where other box users go, "But hey, man, actually this or that." Like it just kind of, as I kind of alluded to earlier, that which actually that someone pointed out correctly that the comment I was mentioning was from Bones, the Falco player, that kind of like a top player just says, "Hey, this thing is bad or good," and you know, then if you're a lower level player or a new player, you just kind of take that at face value. So maybe you go, "Oh, all the best Fox players are using a box. Well, I can't be a good Fox player without a, you know, $200 box controller or whatever." So that's, I think, like it's not cheating so much as just feeling like I can't win without notches or
I guess what it is that like
Oh, go ahead.
all right, so I think the thing is like, let's say you say, okay, it wouldn't be good according to Radar that if our entire top 5 became box controllers, right? But then what? That happens, and then we're gonna ban them. Like, is that our process? So like, it feels like at that point it'd be too late, and we already might be at a point where it's too late, right? And so for me, it's like, then what's the end, right? The end game is that we walk into that situation and then we allow it. And I don't know if that's what people don't want, then we walked into what we don't want. You know,
I guess like my question is what is the downside if that does happen? Like we still get melee at the end of the day, you know?
I think I gave one of the downsides where you have people who feel like I can't get into this game.
Yeah.
You have people quitting because they don't want to switch to box controller, and
But
they
it's
feel like
it's the same as a traditional fighter, if you ask me, in some regards, where it's like the tippy top play with fight sticks, for instance, for, you know, again, Street Fighter, UMVC, like whatever.
I'm gonna correct you. A lot of them actually go back to pad.
Or the pad, yeah, like pads or fight sticks. But like there is variance and choice in that decision, is what I'm trying to get at. Like you have people who play with fucking race car controllers, so like, or like steering wheels. So like
you have to agree that if you have a player base and you say of the top 100, maybe 90% of them are GameCube controller players, and if they feel like to excel at this game, if I've hit a wall and the way I break that wall is relearning the entire game with a different controller, like I don't know how you don't say that's a huge downside.
I agree, but I think I think it's subjective also in some regard.
Yeah, some of it is subjective, but then with melee is different because like with like Street Fighter, a lot of the inputs are like, I'm could be fucking this up too before I speak.
You're probably the most like seasoned Street Fighter.
A lot of that shit is digital already with like pad and sticks, so that's why it's not really like a big deal when you go back and forth. Whereas like melee is like, I think it's analog, right? I'm pretty sure. And then, so when you use a box, isn't that shit like digital? That's like a game changer, you know, like so, you know, I can see why people would be.
Yeah, I mean, for it's not. I don't think it's like the FGC one at all, where it's like, oh, it's just a choice thing, because, like, okay, you use the official PlayStation controller pad, or use like a fight pad. They had hitboxes, which they've gone back and forth on legality on. Like Capcom actually disallowed them, and those were way less drastic than what our boxes do for our game, right? Because those were still digital. And like for the most part, it's like use a fight stick, which are pretty common and you can buy commercially from big companies, or you use an official pad, and like that's where it is, right? It's not like the FTC's got like all of these like crazy community control schemes that fundamentally change how things are inputted, right? Or fundamentally change how mechanics work, right? And that's not, so I don't think it's like a clear comparison. We're like the only game that I know of that is in this deep. Right?
Question.
On that stuff.
And again, playing devil's advocate here, but I'm thinking about, and I see that Ventus is in the chat, which is good because he's like a champ level Rocket League player. Rocket League is, controller dominated from what I understand, and that is like actually very one-to-one in my opinion with Melee, where if you play with keyboard, you are playing with digital inputs, and if you play with controller, you're playing with analog. So, people have a choice in that still. Again, devil's advocate here, I'm just trying to figure out like what is and what isn't okay for a discussion like that, because I'm sure at the top level of Rocket League, for instance, there are people who play with keyboard, but I think a large portion of the player base as a whole play with controller because it's just easier that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's like easier though. I think if you learn how to play the game with one controller, like undoing and relearning the game is like Leffen is only like, I don't want to say he's only doing it. He's doing it because he's like, he said that because he's kind of away from the scene right now and can't enter as many tournaments, there's no better time to make the switch. I feel like, I don't know, it seems like a disadvantage. I don't want to push the point too hard, but.
Well, I feel like digital is a clear advantage over analog. Just straight up. Like,
consistency.
So it's interesting for like something like Rocket League. It's kind of, I feel like most people prefer controller. Like I know for me, I'm not a seasoned Rocket League player, but I like controller just because of like the ability to make small adjustments that aren't like binary ones and zeros. It's like I can kind of micro adjust my car if I need to, or like make a small turn, versus like with a keyboard, it is way more challenging to do those things. I don't really know.
It happens. It happens pretty often when there's like two relatively different control schemes. So like in most FPS games, keyboard and mouse is just better, right?
Right.
But then there's like FPS games which give you aim assist when you play with controller, so then controller becomes better, right? And then usually
like the PC is still better. Like even then.
Even then they use PC but with like the aim assisted controllers or something, So so point is that it's when you have two extremely divergent, like these are extremely different control schemes, it happens very often in competitive games that one's just better and then everyone just switches to it over time, right? The thing that's stopping everyone switching, it feels like to me at least, is that they just don't want to relearn it and they just don't want to, like it feels like a big upstart and most people haven't done it yet. But clearly more people are doing it now. Like we have more people do it. Like our brackets, it feels like there's at least a quarter, which are box users by now, right? Like in terms of the top end. And so like I expect that to continue. Like Laud's learning it, Leffen's learning it, Cody's talking about how many advantages it has, etc. And so like if that becomes more commonplace, like the last guy to switch is going to be like Mango, right? He was the last person to learn ledge dashing, the last person to learn shield dropping, and he'd be the last person to do this. But like
that picture just feels so unnatural to me. Like just thinking about Mango with like a fucking keyboard on his lap. It's like it's just very weird.
It feels weird, but like so I don't think it's crazy because it's like I said, in most games, one control system ends up being superior, and it's really hard to maintain that balance. And I'm not sure we truly can. And so it's gonna be tough.
I think one thing that we haven't really mentioned yet that maybe is worth mentioning is I feel like in my experience playing people who play on box style controllers, it feels different. Is this just me? Like that it does feel like the way they play just feels a bit different. Is that just my imagination?
From a commentary perspective, like when I watch hacks play, it feels like I am watching someone with digital inputs play. Like it is very clear to me, but that also might just be the way that Hacks plays. Like he's very sharp in his movements.
Yeah, I think he's almost an out.
Yeah,
it's also super obvious when you run into a play. Like I don't know, every single time I run into a box player, it's like extremely obvious. Now, do I feel like it's broken or if it's like unfair? Personally, not yet. But like, to answer your question, I think it's very obvious. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like I've played some of these guys, and it feels like, man, Fox is just doing stuff that maybe I'm like not used to, or I have to respect in a weird way. And like, to me, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I've been playing this game for a while, played like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours, and it just feels like a little weird. Now the thing is, does that automatically mean it's like better? No, but I at least, Zeus seems to be backing this up, like feel like there's a difference where you kind of think like, okay, there's something going on here that makes it feel a little different, and I guess it's the digital to analog thing, or analog to digital rather.
All right, well, let's do a quick rundown, right? If you were asked and you were forced to give an answer, right? Do you feel like, as it is now, box controllers are overall superior, like in terms of like if you were a daisy like to relearn the game, like overall mechanically superior to what GameCube controllers offer right now, based on what you know right now, right? Brand, I think I already said yes. What do you think?
Yeah,
go ahead.
So
you
I
give
think
your answer. How about that?
Yeah, I think I feel like I don't know enough about the box, truthfully. I don't even know enough about controllers for real. It does give me that initial vibe, but Wall said, it does seem like some like things that would be easy or hard on the box. So I'm not really sure. And I also don't want to just come here shitting on the box, because it's like, what if a player just genuinely just grinded and got that good?
Yeah.
Then at what point is it the box versus just,
plus like hacks was always
this
weird,
person
right?
also
like,
put in
like
work,
that.
right?
Yeah.
So like I can't really say. I do think it should be like two things I wanted to say. I think the first is that I do think everyone should be on board on the there needs to be open dialogue, regardless if it's box or controller. So whatever you do, it has to be transparent with. Even though these people probably consider each other competition as far as like the controller market or whatever, I do think there needs to be a base level of, hey, this is what we have to work with, and this is what we're going to do as far as legality goes. And then however you differentiate yourself from there is, I guess, up to you. But I think everybody should have a clear understanding, TOs, players, and controller people. Like they should all be on the same playing field. Everything should be like open dialogue. I also think too, you were talking about cheating blurred. There, like, although you could cheat on macros and stuff, like we could do controller cheats and all that stuff, but people can still cheat outside the context of a controller. You know what I'm saying? People just pop some addy and like.
I guess I never.
And then they're good to go. You know, like
true. I don't think Addy actually makes you better. We had a thing.
But you know, there's something there. Like basically what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, no matter how much anti-cheats we do, which even though I'm like for that to an extent, there will always be someone to try to either find a way around it or create another problem that's like, you know, damn, this is considered cheating. And then at what point is it to where we're just like making sure shit is all right versus it just being straight up like policing? You know what I mean? So that's big. But my stance on the box is like I do think a lot of the dialogue needs to be addressed, if anything. But I'm not really. It feels like on surface that shit is just like busted. But I also don't. I feel like I don't understand enough to even give that like an honest answer. But open dialogue is what I say. But for every platform, period.
All right, but here's the thing. Not everyone's got perfect information. I want to at least have everybody get a yes or no based on gut, based on what they know now. Obviously, all of us are going to be like, we don't know enough, or we're not sure, or we haven't had a full range of experiences, right? But what you know now and what you felt, like, that's probably the best anyone's got, right? You're in the community as deep as everyone else, right? Like, where's the gut go, you know? With the understanding that it's not a definitive answer.
I mean, I've had, so I don't know if I told the story, but I've definitely had a situation with hacks where I felt like I got hoed by the box, and he came up to me and apologized. So we played at a Super Nevs once, a tournament, and fucking it's 1-1, right? And I'm like kind of up in the third game, and so it's a best of 5. So I'm giving that for context. I lose the set, by the way, but the point is, at this point of the match, he starts fucking going to the ledge and then ledge dashing over and over, then going back, then ledge dashing, going back, ledge dashing. He's like timing me out low key. I'm like, I couldn't hit him. It's flashing white every time. I'm like, bro, this is like, what the fuck? You can't beat this shit. So I keep trying. Eventually he beats me. And mind you, this is like fucking when he first started doing the box, this had to be like 2016, 2017 at best. He was just like, after playing you, I had to like adjust the shit because I had the vault or whatever he had set to it was too high or something. So basically, every time he got a ledge dash, it was just like free invincibility no matter what. It was basically like a macro. It felt like.
Wave
And then
dash.
I was like, yeah, and I was just like, bro, that shit is like, what
I
the
mean,
fuck?
I think that's
like,
a huge point too. It's like
Yeah.
with controllers in general, like how can you account for like random quote unquote malfunctions like that?
right.
It's
And
like,
so
oh,
at
my
first-
controller broke, so I play really, really good now. Like, I don't know.
Right. So at first I was like, dude, if that's the box, fuck that shit. That shit is broken. You can't hit him. You can just do that to everybody. But then after like he kept tweaking it. And so then I'm less likely to just be like, oh, that should be banned, right? Because I see that I watch a lot of box players play and like they fuck up. Like we give them a lot of credit on their tech, but sometimes they botch tech. Sometimes they fuck up ledge dashes. They air dodge. They spot dodge randomly. So I think it's been flushed out. Should I say it should be banned off gut? I'm gonna say no, but I do think there should be like fucking open dialogue on this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that's the least you could do if you're gonna play on something that people already are skeptic of. Then you should just have open dialogue. Controllers too.
That's a good answer.
I'm sorry.
Let's go with Radar. Let's go with Radar. Go.
My answer would be yes, but I want to preface this because again, like, there's something I completely get about a person who hears conversations like this and goes like, man, you guys are discounting my achievements. You're basically trying to push me out of a game that like maybe I can't play without hand problems. So I want to say, for all the guys who play the box, like, I don't think any of you guys are like carried by the controller. I don't think, like, I can think of a lot of people that either know personally or who made the switch and were good players before. And if they've had good results following it, I don't think it's because like they switched the box and that was it. But on almost every level, it feels hard to make it like to say, no, the GameCube's better, especially like even just ergonomics and stuff and like consistency. Like take out the digital and analog stuff, which is also part of the consistency, and just have like a more comfortable controller where, you know, like you said, the 5-finger thing, having something that just sort of, I don't know, the GameCube controller sucks in a lot of ways. I feel like it's hard to play it, to be a Melee player and not get really frustrated with it, even if I obviously have like emotional attachment to it as well. So,
all right, I guess Zoo. What's your answer to that question?
Yeah, I have an answer, and then I have like a little bit just like my thoughts. So it's like, my answer right now is no. I personally don't really care. Again, preface, I'm not a top level competitor. My livelihood is not based around it. So I'm not as personally invested. But my gut check is like, okay, if I played a box player, from low level to high level, do I feel like they won because of the box? No. So therefore my answer is no. My thought kind of going back to almost like the ecosystem of it, thinking about it in terms of like a market.
Sure.
If I think about it like that, I actually kind of like that the box has been introduced. Because now it's like we're introducing, you know, like there's the GoomWave DX or whatever, which is going to make the GameCube controller better. And the positive of that, at least for me as a player, is that like, well, now there are just better options. There's competitors, you know, there's like Box Frame 1, blah, blah, you know, whatever, Smashbox. There's going to be the GoomWave. There might be some other ones. And if there's more money and there's more demand for these things, there's going to be more suppliers. And then the quality is going to go up, the price is going to go down. You know, just presumably. So it's like for the player, I think that's better. But then you run into potential issues like cheating. Do I think cheating is going to be a bigger issue than the gain that we get from a greater increased supply of better controllers at a lower price? I personally don't think so. So I kind of, if I think about it like that, I feel like the direction is good for the player overall. So that is my spiel. That's just a gut check. And I was also thinking about it in terms of like, oh, if I played, you know, we all agree that Fox is, well, I mean, maybe not everyone agrees, but everyone pretty much agrees that Fox is the best character. You know, it's like, you know, has Fox caused problems and we've kind of like banned stages because of it? Yes, but it's like if I lose to a Fox player, do I feel like I lost to them because they're Fox or because they're the better player? And that's kind of how I feel about the box currently. So that's just like my take on it.
It's funny because I agree with every word you said.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah, exactly.
It's funny how that works. Is that everything you said makes sense to me? I also think that equilibrium hasn't been reached yet. Like we'll see what if GoomWave and Panda come out and make GameCube controllers buffed, and maybe that equilibrium will be enough to kind of make it feel a little bit more even. I definitely don't think like you said, like, oh, are they winning because of the box? Like, hell no, it's not that strong, right? Like, end of the day, neutral matters. So good points. Claps. Walt, what do you got?
I just like going off of what Zoo said really quick. My gut reaction is also no. Like, I wouldn't switch, but that's out of just kind of like ignorance or kind of stubbornness to the GameCube controller. Like, I've just grown with this for all my life. The reason I would say yes is because I play Mario and I will never, ever, ever be a good player at this game. So, like, from an ergonomic perspective, like, if I had an option,
he's brave there.
He just says it.
So, you know, I gotta get made fun of somehow. But but like, if there is an option that exists, which there is, like, if I'm presented with that option 10 years ago, to have a controller that allows me to play a game that I love for much longer with substantially less health risk, you know, to my hands not exploding, then yeah, I would switch. But in general, I would probably say no. I think for the reason that Zoo pushed forward with the whole ecosystem thing. I think because in part it promotes innovation. It spurs on more innovation within the community, within the market. Whether or not you kind of blur the lines between innovation and cheating is another story, but the fact that more people can kind of jump into Melee, quote unquote, as like a career choice and a lifestyle is insane to me. I think that that's like a net good for the community as a whole, for where someone can.
You guys
jump
aren't
in and
answering
like,
the prompt, man. You guys aren't answering. The prompt was, do you think they are stronger? Do you think I'm cutting them off because
I said no.
The prompt was, do you think they're stronger? Not what are the benefits of it existing?
You asked if we would switch, so I said no.
No. I asked, do you think the pure question? The prompt was,
okay.
Do you think it is on a pure play-to-play basis stronger as it is now, as in where it stands? But you guys are talking about, I think it's good for the ecosystem, all that shit.
Okay, fine. Right? On paper, yes, probably. But in practice, I like, again, my perspective as more of a casual, like, not competitive player is I don't care. So it doesn't matter to me whether or not my opponent plays on a box. You know, until it gets to the point where it is very clear that the person won because of the box, which I think we're all in agreement that isn't the case at all right now. I don't think I would ever care that someone was playing on a box. If anything, I think it's just, it's good, again, good for the community because it promotes diversity in a way that allows other people to thrive in the whole ecosystem,
I feel it.
I think now is a good time to try to segue out of this. I think we had an interesting discussion. I do not blame any. We'd love to keep talking about this, but I got to be the host. I got to be like, okay, we got to hit that little rankings button. But again, just really want to stress, because I know there's going to be people watching this and talking about it. Like, this is not like a hit piece on box players. I feel like somehow some of this, like, these freaking filthy cheaters need to be taken out of the community. Like, no, that's not how I think it, or you guys. But, we want to have a discussion, and I think Brandon said it best with we need like a dialogue and some actual communication going. So yeah,
I think that this should definitely continue at another point. So, we're very happy to announce the Crimson Blur for episode 5 of the Mix-Up, and episode 6, 7, 8, and many more for the foreseeable future. So
everyone wants a piece.
Dope, bro.
But yeah,
Davis, bro.
The other topic that we wanted to talk about, which great discussion on controller stuff, by the way. Great work, everybody. Firm handshakes all around. I know Radar has a lot to say about the like MMR systems. I know you're actually working on a piece, or at least kind of like diving into what different MMR systems mean. And I guess like I'd honestly be interested. Like, I mean, part of the reason we wanted to bring you three on specifically is that you're all also, you were competitive players at one point, if you aren't still. Where you guys kind of stand in terms of like how rankings do function, because like the way that we've had it, you know, in previous years has obviously just been like, you know, we get rankings at the local level for your PRs, and then we get rankings at the end of the year from a panel. But this is kind of like a way different ball game than those things.
Yeah, I think to sort of add some context, like the two things that are interesting to me is Slippi is in the process of more like a ranked development. Obviously, they just introduced MMR. This is something I at one point will finally release a video to discuss on like the more logistical side of stuff. It is complicated, and it's just the scoping just keeps expanding. But the point is that we will have a ranked system in Slippi soon. On top of that, we have net play rank. You know, we have net play tournaments. There's talks about that kind of ranking stuff. And then there's also a discussion that kind of started. A couple people weighed in. It started with a tweet from LSD, where LSD tweeted saying, I'm trying to remember the exact thing.
My man Logan dirty like that.
Well, again, not calling people. This is the problem.
I know, I'm kidding. I'm just giving you shit, man.
Oh shit! You mentioned the name. Like, tweeted saying something like,
I have it.
The May Kruger graph, which was state PR, where you have no level of competence, basically. Average, which was top 150 level, and then top 100 is where you go to expert. And I quote tweeted this, being like, I think it's kind of crazy that our community frames top 150 as average, and being on your local PR or your state PR as like, I guess you're okay at the game. And I think there was a lot of people weighed in about like different viewpoints. So I think maybe we could start there. Like, what do you guys think about this idea that like among top players, and I can think of some reasons for it, but among top players, there's kind of a vibe that like, you know, you're not even close to good until like, you're not even important until you're top 100 almost.
Yeah, I can see that. I do think Melee players have a skewed perspective of like what is good, personally.
Yeah.
That's just me though.
Dude, what I always say is that people say that someone's good when they're at their level or better. Like anyone who's even like a little bit worse than them, like if you're taking 80% of the games from someone, they might as well be hot garbage trash. Even if like it doesn't matter like where you go, you know, what the skill level is. If you ask, you know, me if someone's good, it'll probably be a different answer than if you ask Leffen if someone's good. Why? Right. Because when I play that person, I might have a hard time. When Leffen plays that person, it's like a joke to him. So he would just say, no, that person's like not good yet. He's got, you know, potential, but not good yet. But I'd be like, damn, that person's hella good, you know? So that's usually where people draw the line. And when top players are the ones talking, it's always going to be, you know, top 100 level or bust.
Yeah, I think a lot of good players don't have context to like what's good when you take it outside of them thinking about themselves. So it's like if someone beats me, like this is like the average like top 100 player in my opinion. They think, oh, you know, like say I'm top 100, I lose. I think that guy's good because I lost, right? But if like I'm literally just repeating what you said, Blair. Like if I could barely beat someone and then be like, oh, you know, I'm better than them because I barely won. You know, it's like like the lines are skewed, and they think that they are like. I think you either have the type of player that thinks like no one's like this good or like everyone's this good. You know, it's usually it's a weird line that it's all.
I guess I could reframe the question a bit and say, is there a cultural, maybe not problem is the right word, but is there a culture of like you're nobody till you're somebody in the community, or like you're nobody until you're like really, really good at the game? Like, is that kind of a thing? Is that a problem? Kind of.
I think so, a little bit.
Sometimes, but I think that's past just melee or even fighting. I think that's kind of just like Loki, just like an American thing. Like, you know, like fucking, you know, you're not nobody till you're somebody. You know, like it's either like, you know, it's the reason why like, you know, the LeBron gets paid fucking hundreds of $1 million and there's probably some dude on his team on the bench and you have no idea who his name is, but they're on the same team, you know?
I mean, I think that's the reason why, like, the MMR, the idea of like MMR in Slippi is like kind of a big deal, because it's like, do we like is a gold 1 player good at that point? Like, you know, at what's the rank cutoff that we call someone, you know, between shit and good? It's kind of,
yeah, that's subjective. I think I don't think you could really have a objective opinion.
but I think it's hard also because like you know, Radar, it seems like you know, based on your response, like you are more on the side of like the world is a very big place, obviously, so like being ranked in your state is actually, you know, kind of good. Like, you know, if you're top 10 in the state, you know, like, it depends on the strength of where you are, you know, of course, but there's like a large number of melee players and a small number of them are even locally ranked, which, you know, I kind of think does deserve some recognition.
I think the other thing too for me that, you know, I know Blur has talked a bit about this in the past, is like kind of like goal structuring and kind of like, say if you look at the path to a pro, I don't know, basketball player or something, maybe they join like a league and then they join a higher tier league and then maybe they play in college and then, you know what I mean? Like they're climbing this kind of ladder. And when people say like, oh, you know, they're semi-pro or they're call it like whatever, they know where they're kind of at. Whereas in Melee, for me, maybe it feels like you're either shit or you're good. And like, I wonder what are the consequences of that if you're like a newer player and you're thinking, man, you know, I'm starting to get some of my tech skill down and things are starting to go well. I comboed a Fox the other day and killed him in a single combo. And then someone says, bro, if you're top 150, which is like 0.00 whatever % of the game, you're average. Like, is that a problem? Like both the lack of goal structure and just that kind of attitude, like, does that discourage people?
It's a good question.
I can take a stab at that. So, I think, okay, so too many Falcos in chat actually kind of summarizes
calling out all Falco players.
Yeah,
there are too many Falcos. The Falcos are too damn high. It's not.
So so I actually simultaneously kind of believe, or like personally believe, two things, and I think a lot of people in Melee do as well. So Too Many Falcos says, you're good in Melee if you play the game at all, please no gatekeeping, right? So it's like, to me, playing Melee in the first place is a fucking absurd thing to do, right? Like, it's crazy that anyone plays this game competitively. There's like no money on the line. It breaks your hands. It's like the hardest game ever. Like, if you go 0-2, like, in the grand scheme of things, like when people say like your friend is like good at, I don't know, basketball, like, you know, good at math or whatever, sure, it's like, okay, the 0-2 player at most tournaments, this person, relatively speaking, is like good at Melee, right? Like, they're probably pretty good. But at the same time, the other side of that coin is Melee is a very unforgiving game. You can 4-stock people on unranked all day, play anyone slightly better than you, get 4-stocked and feel like you don't understand the game at all. That doesn't end even if you're like number 1, because you'll have those days where you suck. And I think even the most critical players, like, you think of a player that criticizes other people, imagine how critical they are to themselves. And I think that's probably true for most players, even into top 100. And I think LSD's graph of kind of saying, like, I think the answer to that question is in the graph itself, right? Like, it kind of shows the top 100 players being very, very critical of themselves, and that's likely why they view the top 150 player as just like okay, because they don't see themselves as very good.
I also want to clarify, LSD is going to be pissed otherwise, that LSD said the average label was just the default label for the graph I took, and I didn't change it. So, but what happened after that was then a bunch of people were like, no, but I do think it's average. So
but you kind of didn't. Though.
Yeah, like even people in the thing were like, but now that it's been acknowledged, I would still say it's average. So I was like, okay, well.
Have you guys seen that meme of the it's like the pendulum that's like going fucking crazy, and it was like you know, this like what goes through the minds of fighting game players like on a regular basis, and the one side of the pendulum was like, I am the best player to ever touch this game of all mankind, and the other side was like, I am literally worse than shit at everything that I do. And it's just like going back and forth constantly. Like,
I think the thing that ranked would solve the most is just giving us a little bit more of a metric, like a real metric of how good we've gotten. I think it's been so frustrating to try to get better in Melee and not know if I'm actually better than I was 2 months ago. You know, like I think I probably am, but there's no way to know it, like the way we structured. Whereas in every other game, there's a very clear and obvious way to know it. Like, are you higher ranked? Do you have more points on the Pro Tour? Do you have there's some way of saying like, hey, you're better now, right?
Something tangible other than a feeling.
Right? Yeah, and it's funny because so I had the first coaching session of my life, right? I looked at my VODs for the first time. I broke the glass, right? With my boy Kadoran last night.
That's actually crazy.
That is crazy to hear from
because you helped me with VODs, bro.
Remember? Yeah, but I don't look at my own stuff. And he already hit the core of my being in his analysis, right? And I'm just like looking at the world in a different way. And it's funny because you talk about like how people are self-critical and stuff like that. And basically what he was telling me was that was been my problem. So I play like I commentate, right? If you guys watch my commentary, like a lot of it's like, okay, he should have done this. What options are available? Like here are like the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? Of like while watching the game, and also like pointing out sometimes nuances and stuff like in my play-by-play. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing: when you do that, when you actually play, and you're always thinking about, damn, I should have F-tilted here. Damn, I should I'm always playing like 10 seconds before, like I'm thinking about what happened 10 seconds before almost at all times. And I didn't really realize it until he told me that. I was like, literally at every second I'm thinking about, oh man, I should have done this or done that or whatever, and I'm not even in the moment anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess to relate it to this topic, I feel like that overly critical aspect happens to people on a macro level where they think they're not in the moment realizing they are getting better, right? And the reason they're not realizing they're getting better is because we don't have the metrics to show that they're getting better. And so they end up going to this critical spiral where they feel like, oh man, I'm still trash at this game. Like I haven't got, like there's nothing to do, like I'm still choosing all these bad options. And so it happens to them out of the game as much as it happens for me in game, and I think for a lot of other people in game where they get put in that spiral.
It's a tough mental game to climb that ladder, right? It's really hard. Really, really hard.
True.
It's like that between you gotta go. It's like a line between like confidence and ego. It's also a lot of people with like fucking massive ass egos too. So, for the same dude that gets like down and they take the loss tough and think they suck, there's also someone who loses, and no matter how much they lose, they're like, no, I know I'm better than this. I know I'm better than this.
Right. I think that's where MMR comes into play though, because it's like it is just a straight up percentage of players. Like
right.
For League of Legends, like if you are platinum in League of Legends, which is like most people would consider that, fairly above average, I think, for that game, you are in the top 10% of players in the game for your region. Like Radar, I know you are a high level Hearthstone player.
That's cool.
That is like you are in the top percentile of players in that game. Like for me, I play Magic the Gathering Arena, and I'm like Diamond Mythic in that for Constructed. That is like the top 5 to 1% of players in that game. Like there are like very well-defined constructs of what makes a player quote unquote good at that point, because you can just say, you don't even have to say I'm good. You can say I am in the top 10% of players who play this game, period. And it's just like an objective fact at that point.
Right.
I think what, not to try to like, especially not trying to like brag or anything, but I think why I was like sort of motivated from this is, for me, I've like played a lot of other games, and I'm sure there's people in this call who have also played other games at like a higher level. And I'm obviously not a pro player, but I was like top masters at StarCraft, and I've done Hearthstone, and I've done speedruns, and I've done other games. And every other community, pretty much, they'll be like, damn, like top 8 masters every season. Wow, that's really good. And then in Melee, if you have like even an okay result, I feel like people are like, that's still shit, bro, until you get like ranked in.
I feel like that's just like fighting game culture though too.
Yeah,
like,
sometimes it's like it's just, I don't know, sometimes people just be hating, bro.
It being harder, like I think the reality, and again, no disrespect to the Hearthstone players, certainly the StarCraft players, but like Melee is harder. And I think not only is it harder, but we're also in like late stage Melee where even like the shitty players are fucking amazing at the game. And so like the standard, like I don't know, it's just something I think about, like as like, does a person who gets into this game think, man, am I the only one who thinks this is like insanely hard or something? And what do we do to kind of help that if anything at all?
I think
Mm.
like MMR is good. I think ladder, like what
Yep.
Fedora and you were doing, Blur. I think the ladder stuff's really good for stuff like that because you get to play people at all ranges, and I think that like the more people you play, I think the better idea you kind of have for how good you are. So
Can you
when
talk
put
more about how
people-
the ladder actually works?
Yeah, because if you put like I don't really know how it works, but I know Blur probably does. But if you I just think if you put people in a position where they can constantly play people, not only will they just develop, but they'll know where they stand amongst a group of 20 people. At least I would think so, competitively at least.
Yeah, the ladder is basically you're put into a ladder and there's matchmaking between people in the ladder, and it kind of works like Hearthstone stars, where you get a star for every win you have, and you just climb it. And then at some point in the tournament, we do a cutoff where we go into a double elimination bracket for the people who have the most stars. That's like, I guess, the simplest way I could put
That's
it.
cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's been a pretty good system. Like, you know, our entry counts every week are pretty good now. We're like 200-ish. And so people like it a lot, and I think it's definitely really good for new players, especially, and mid-level, pretty much everybody. I'd say gets something out of it. For it's a good metric of where you're at. So I think like ladders are been good. I think obviously ranked mode is going to change the game, in terms of how we all view each other and how we view like progress in the game. But I think like more than that, like I think learning how to give yourself a bit of a break can help so much. Like so many players I've seen over time, where they let their own personal shame, and their own. It's not even about the external facts, what other people think most of the time. It's like feeling like they can't hit past their own walls. Like they let that in particular get in the way of them playing the game, which is what would make them break those walls.
Sure.
And that happens all the time. It happens to me. It happens to everybody, right?
No, I've been there 100%.
You know what I'm talking about, Brandon.
Yeah.
And so I think like, yeah, Melee is crazy hard, but everyone has goals and everyone wants to get really, really good. And they just want that payoff, right? I think like when you've been doing it for a while, you're like, when's that payoff coming? Am I actually capable? The self-doubt starts to seed in. And I think like, having concerted effort and finding your way through is the only way to break those barriers. And being able to make measurable progress would be a huge step for people. Like I think most of people's frustration comes from simply that. Like even right now, dude, I think it's a huge disservice that we don't have a top 100 coming, right, for basically the last year results. Like I respect the PG people plenty, and I understand what their stance on the land stuff, but nonetheless, like I feel like I want these results to matter. Like this quarantine is going to end up being 2 years, right? Maybe more, I don't know fully when it's going to end, but it feels like we're going to be out of the woods hopefully in October-ish, maybe more, who knows, right? But it's basically going to end up being 2 years. And for me, it's like that's way too long to not know where the skill. Like that's like approximately a year and a half too long to not know where the real skills are, because like the last top 100 is completely irrelevant right now, like super irrelevant.
Sure.
And then there's like, of course, I think it's already a disservice that we don't rank the people after 100, right? Like we got thousands of players and we only rank 100 people. Like it's kind of stupid. Like obviously rank mode will help for that, and like we don't have regional PRs active anymore. It just feels like a lot of it's a drop ball, and it's kind of incredible that so many people, because they're bad for Melee, they're still playing. But I don't want to be a position where like we're not putting goals in front of people, because that's when usually people stop playing.
Right.
Positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement, man.
Mhm.
Everyone knows. I mean,
the controllers. Sorry, am I cutting you off?
No, go ahead.
So like we were talking with the controllers about how someone like Gumi will post a tweet and be like, "Hey, I'm making this," and it's just like, bam. Do you guys feel like when someone like Practical Task says, "Hey, by the way, I'm just not going to do the rankings because I don't think it's legit if it's online"? Obviously, that's kind of a pretty ineffective way to paraphrase what was said. But do you think like, okay, so we just don't have rankings, even if maybe some of the community wants like? What's the relationship there? Should there be a dialogue with people who make rankings? Because it's also like, obviously it's a lot of work. So But you know, that's something to sort of segue into.
But anyone can make one though. Like literally, if Mailing Stats want to, I'll help. You know, like whatever.
I
Like
know
it's
Edwin was
not
in
like
the chat earlier, so
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible to make
it'd
one.
actually be hella
You
easy.
I
could-
think
you
it's
could
yeah.
just make one right now if
I
you
think
really
that
want.
yeah,
I
that
think
we were
there's
actually
not
thinking
too
about
much
talking
for-
about that too.
No,
And I
you-
think that some of I wanted to kind of go off of Radar's comment. A lot of what we have kind of been directing this discussion at so far has been like rankings in the sense of like new and mid-level people. Kind of defining that line of if you're good or not. But I think more of the discussion also needs to come from the top level, because like we kind of mentioned earlier, the top level kind of defines the narrative and the trajectory for our game. So, where like I don't think it's hard to make a ranking for sure.
Yeah.
You might ruffle some feathers in the process, but I think it's just like a completely objectively net good thing to talk about like where people should be ranked, because it spurs rivalries, it keeps competition high, it makes more events more interesting. Like it's only good in my opinion.
Like sponsors is a big thing. If we want to talk like economic stuff, if you go like, hey man, I would be top 100, I would be top 10 right now, and I don't have a rank, like it could screw up the people that.
I mean, that was presumably the one of the big advantages of a ranking system is that helps people get sponsored, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the wake of everything in December, where all the Nintendo stuff happened. So I didn't want to tweet this. I decided not to tweet this.
But you'll say it on the podcast, though. All right.
I think the people who are 2 hours in, I think the people who are this far in can deal with it on an emotional level a little bit better.
I can't wait to clip this and put this on Twitter.
All right.
I was watching a podcast, right? So Thorin, whatever you think about Thorin, but he had G2's owner and Liquid's owner, Nazgul and Ocelot, on his podcast, right? And Smash was brought up two times, right? And basically, in the most depressing light ever, where they were basically talking about like the role of a publisher in the ecosystem, right? And they were talking about all the things that they think Valve should do, and almost consistently they were contrasting it with what not to do, which was when they used Nintendo as like the other face. And part of that was basically going like how they don't think investing into the Smash Brothers community makes sense because there's no future, there's no developer, all this stuff, right? So we are like, those are two of the biggest team owners in the world basically saying, that, yeah, there's nothing there for us to put money into. That is what I've intimated, I think, a few times, that like that is one of the big negative effects that Nintendo has on our scene, etc. But like, we're not even making it any easier because it's already, we have to go up that hill where these owners already feel like owning a Smash player is kind of pointless, right? Because our game has such a limited future with a developer actively trying to kill it, right? But then we also don't have a ranking to make it like easy for them to if they were even interested to make
the
it
optics
possible
of it is
for them
terrible.
to look at. So it's like, it's no surprise to me that it's like, you still have top 10 players who would have a hard time getting a sponsor, even like a small one, right? Like in 2016, 2017, at least the thing that 2016, 2017, like why were so many people sponsored? It's like people were hopeful about Nintendo, right? Nintendo Versus was just launched. There was Invitationals. There was
the Switch got announced.
Switch got announced with an esports part of the trailer. Like they were licensing events. Like there was even the pro teams were like, all right, maybe there's actually something that's going to happen here, right? And now we know behind the scenes there was a lot of stuff in the works that were actually real and people were having. So those pro teams were hopeful. Right now, it's the opposite. Everyone knows, like both publicly and privately, right? The reason why a lot of this stuff didn't blow up is because it's to our disadvantage for everyone to know how effed we are, right? How screwed we actually are. And we're pretty screwed. Right now, the players are earning no money, right? All these tournaments are pretty much free. Every week you look, everything's free. Anything they enter, you see on stream, they're free. They pretty much just have stream revenue. And for the people who aren't sponsored, which is almost everybody except for like Mango HBox and a couple others, like all the money they're making is off their stream subs, and that's what we have left. That's where we're at right now, right? So I don't think not having rankings does us any favors when it's one of the biggest hooks you can have for
Just
anyone
advertising the
to
game.
come in and advertise in the game and talk about how good you are, even if it's not for a sponsorship. I think it would help people stream viewership. Like, be like, dog, I'm the third best mark in the world. Check me out, right? But we can't say that right now because we don't have a ranking for anyone to feel that way. So, like, I think that's something that it legitimately would help the scene a lot. So
yeah, I guess the lines blur, no pun intended. But we're in like with just roll back in different regions, like like connection from Cali to New York isn't great. Like we can't play Cali players can't play European players, for example.
Yeah.
Like then that's where shit starts getting a little
we should
weird.
just do a West Coast,
just
Europe,
do a
and
like a
East
NA
Coast
Yeah, I mean,
ranking,
if you
like,
separate them, then yeah, I guess so.
yeah,
but...
just separate, make 3 rankings and call, and maybe also an Asia ranking, or something like that. Maybe you go farther than that.
Yeah,
but like,
exactly.
You regionalize it, and look, something is better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's just what Hacks was saying.
Like people just want to do it because they're like, oh, online isn't legit. But like, I don't think they see how it's hurting people to not have it.
It's literally like resumeable. Like you having a ranking is your resume. It is the headliner of your resume as a competitive player. Like
Echo and Ginger come out as big ones for me, where it's like Ginger is probably top 10 now. Yeah. And I don't know if Ginger has a sponsor at the moment, and Aklo wasn't even top 100 like last year.
I mean, even
now,
like LSD too. We mentioned him earlier. He's beating like amazing players. I think there's an argument for him for easily, in the discussion of that ranking. Exactly where I'm not sure, but there's a lot of people, and this is like directly affecting their potential at a future in playing this game at a competitive level of reality, which is like pretty rough.
Right.
Well, Radar, you're in the Discord, right? You say you're in the Melee Stats Discord. They're the ones who should do it. They do the best job. So Melee Stats, if you're watching this, and Edwin,
there's so many.
I'm gonna message them tonight or tomorrow.
Just fucking do it, bros. You guys know it's a good idea. It wouldn't be that hard. Just do it.
Especially if you region lock, like we're saying, if we did East Coast, West Coast, and Europe, or like even I don't know if NA is feasible, just given distance from East Coast to West Coast, but like splitting it down there, like I think you get way more defined lines of where kind of those breakpoints are in skill or in potential ranking.
Yeah.
It's just crazy that
before we move on, I was just gonna say I gotta go, so probably gotta cut you guys off.
Sure.
Take care, man.
I beat up. Great stuff. Definitely a big motivator. One of my favorite things. I look forward to every ranking series, and I miss it as well. So
let's go.
All right, I'll see you guys.
Thanks again, Zoo.
I was gonna say that. Damn, I forgot what I was about to say.
Oh no, my camera's just got ruined off of that.
It'll come. Oh, for TOing. They can still hear me, can they?
Yeah, we can all still hear you.
Oh, okay. I was saying that it would make it a lot easier because, like, I be TOing these a lot, and like I go off of results from like the last couple of weeks and whatever. But it would be nice to like.
Oh boy, cameras just got really.
Have like a ranking to seed it off of. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, seeding is so ridiculous right now.
It's hell, bro.
It just doesn't even like. It just doesn't work.
So many players that are like quote unquote on the come up. Just that's just a good word for good ass players that we don't know about. So like, oh man, that shit's hard. I wish that we could have a system that just had it to where I could just put people in play, but at the same time, you don't want to, because sometimes that can be monotonous because the same people play over and over.
Yeah.
But
plus, like I think for historical level, man, we even have like on historical level, like guys like Zane, who's clearly been the best in the world. It's like his accomplishments. Like
he like it basically just goes unchecked. Like there's no real verifiable way of saying that Zane was number one other than just everybody saying it. I mean, but like there's no like here's your number one, fucking ranking placement thing. You know what I mean?
Which is crazy because like I don't know any top like community member player that wouldn't put him at number one, and it still is something that we like don't say. That he can't like hold a little trophy being like I'm number one.
Right.
And that's the sad part,
I mean, it'd be cool to see before we get too deep into the year. I think you could still salvage something from like, I don't know, from COVID to now. You can like salvage something, but I mean that would be up to the ranking guys that do all that stuff.
Hey,
If I knew how to
Edwin,
do this shit, I'd do it, but
Edwin's in chat. Edwin, we want people a ranking list. Edwin, you have all the blessings. Do it. Fucking make it happen. What's wrong? What's the deal? Make it happen.
This reminds me
He
of like
just said "ugh." That's
Ugh?
the only
Dude,
response.
No. I know him. That's a yes. That's a yes.
I know, yeah,
There's
it's
way too.
a
He
disgruntled
knows
yes.
now that he's been called out on it that he is obligated to do it, and he's gonna do it, and that's a beautiful thing. That's what I like to see in life.
I
So,
mean,
all right, so we're gonna get a ranking. This is why we do these shows, right?
Are you know this for sure? You know we're gonna get a ranking.
I'm putting it on him, dude.
I know a lot of people are against it, but I mean for the ranking people, I'll give you guys all the results that from our tournaments if you need.
Dude. I'll do it for mine.
We had
You know,
a
like,
lot
hell
of tournaments like last year, so if you need all of it, I got you.
I feel like you're the premier online tournament guy, at least for
Fucking
the-
crazy. Yeah,
Like,
Yeah, we had like Untitled over the year, like last year
Yeah.
too, and
Trey's tournament, Trash, the Garbage Connection, Trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, shouts to the garbage connection.
Fucking you guys, Team Oxy with the ladder now, which is pretty dope. Polarity, I feel like they don't get talked about enough every Mondays, right?
Shouts to Polarity.
What else goes down? The Sob Sundays.
Yeah.
That happens every Sunday. Hax's nightclubs come back.
That's true, yeah.
Fuck, there's another tournament I can't think of right now.
Poliana Europe, shouts to them.
yeah.
Poliana Europe.
I mean, if anything, like we talked about this in an earlier episode. Was it with Toph or Fizzy? I can't recall, but it was like just the fact that like online events in general are just this accessible, and you know, even Blur, like you said, like they're all free for the most part, but like even if eventually we can start doing them for, you know, real sizable money, the fact that we can just kind of like hop on our computer or do whatever and like just play in a tournament is really, really beneficial to like the scene as a whole. It's just like, it's crazy to think that this is where we're at right now.
At least it gives me peace knowing that no one's going, at least I like to think that no one's being put at risk for an event I'm holding, right? So no one's like, I know they are all in the safety and the comfort of their own home. At least that's what I would like to think. I know there's situations where certain players will go to someone else's house to play. I've seen that before, like if their computer isn't good enough or whatever. But I don't know. Even that, it's like at least I know someone's like not going to a venue and risking like getting COVID over Melee. It's just not that serious. You know, and there's been tournaments, like real life tournaments in 2020, which is actually insane to me. But
ban them. That's what I always say. Anyone who did that, any TO that did that, blacklist, bro. I don't
at least anything prior to like March, whatever. But like once they start putting like stay at home laws and motherfuckers are still having tournaments, like bro, it is not. Especially with rollback coming out, it's like you have literally no excuse to be going to no tournament.
Yeah.
Zero.
And now it feels like now there's light at the end of the tunnel finally with the vaccine. Like I feel like, you know, we could take another few months of this, man. We'll be fine. And it's like
we could wait it out until it's like we for sure know that it's safe at least, you know.
Yeah. It was like I think it was a lot harder for me mentally in November when we didn't know that there would be an end. Whereas for now I feel like, yeah, it's gonna end. It will end, you know? And that feels good.
I mean, hopefully things go into play where we can all go back to doing what we're doing. And then I hope that even though, like, obviously I want in-person tournaments to come back, I do think that online tournaments should be a staple still, even with
absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think this shit should die just because tournaments.
And they should count both.
Yeah,
like,
no,
both
I agree. I think there should be a way we can implement both. I think it'd be fire, especially like coming back. I think you could start small with like a summit before you go with like the Genesis, the big house. But to get in the summit in person, you got to go online. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that would be cool. Like that'd be a good like start.
And what's cool about it, I think like right now we compromise a little bit by like allowing like we have national events, you know. But I think as it's online tournaments are gonna get even more legit post COVID because we'll probably region lock them more often, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then that's gonna make it so the qualification is gonna be hyper legit. For me, when it's like less than 70, 80, it's like basically the same, you know. And actually probably better because my monitor and my setup is so good. I got 240 hertz. Shouts to me.
Oh, okay.
Man,
Bro, I just got put on recently.
I gotta flex that. You know, you're on 240, right? Or what are you on?
Bro, I bought a 240 hertz monitor, right?
Damn.
And
Okay.
didn't know the shit was set on 60 till like 3 or 4 months in. Bro, I don't know if you followed that on Tidal where I played Curve and I won that tournament.
Yeah.
I played that whole shit in 60 and didn't know it.
Oh my god, that's
I
crazy.
was like,
very, very.
Then I tried it in 240 hertz, bro. I felt like I was just sliding. It was crazy. It's actually
Took the weights off.
yeah, goddamn. It's wild, bro. It's the difference for sure.
I do wish, like, hearing this stuff, it's like, it just seems like we're really lacking organization, I guess. Because, like, some of these things, like, I hear, like, ranking stuff and think, like, yeah, I'd be down to work on, like, articles for players or to help with graphics, something. You know, like, I think there's people, like, I know when 5 Days of Melee kind of ended, people were like, you know, what do we do with this, like, Discord and collection of people? And I feel like we haven't really seen the payoff for that yet. So, you know, it would be cool if people like Edwin, the Melee Stats guys, and, you know, volunteers and other stuff kind of fill those gaps, because I think the gaps are pretty obvious in there.
Right. This reminds me of like when obviously not as drastic and way the upsides are way better than back then, but this definitely reminds me of when Brawl came out and like you just had a point where there was just no organization because everybody was just kind of existing, making sure the game didn't die. And then after a while, like a lot of old players left, a lot of vets left. So then you got new faces and then you get familiar with these people. And then from there, it's kind of like what you're saying, Radar. Like everybody's like, oh, I think we need to establish some kind of organization. And I think as people get older too, they just mature into knowing that. But this kind of reminds me in that sense because, you know, since just in general, a lot of shit has happened in the last year, right? And then without outside the context of Melee, but even within Melee, you have like a bunch of people who are probably on that top 100 list who just aren't even active, I'd say, right? Because of, you know, what happened. But then, like you guys said, with Aklo, LSD, what I think, who else is like really good now? I got, did Bobby Big Balls? Wasn't he like at the tail end? And like now he's like, you know, super good. There's so many players that like have progressed since this COVID era. What's the Puff guy? Komodo. I never heard of that dude until
Komodo's hella dude. There's actually a bunch of good puffs lately. Solo battle in Europe too.
Never heard of him. Never heard of Golden. Never heard of Dawson. All these people, all those puffs, I never heard of them before. And that's not even a knock. It's just like, you know,
they got better.
There would have been no way, you know. Like I just feel like there's so many players like that that's just come out the blue, bro. Like, I mean, Trap Lord, even though he was making waves a little bit before, I think like during COVID, people started knowing who he was. He beat Axe and stuff like that. Android O, like a lot of these players, like hey, you name like 10 players right there. Like,
well, I think Brandon, to speak on it a little bit, I think a part of it is that the traditional quote. I hate using the term community leader because I think it's fucking pointless in our community. Like, you don't actually have a lot of power, right? You just kind of talk sometimes and get people together, which is what anyone can do. But like a lot of those people, because they were Lantios, like they haven't been as evolved in like online as much. So like and I'm not trying to call these people out, but like what has Sheridan done in the last year when it comes to Melee? What has Nintendo done? What has Joe Guy done? Poor Joe Guy wanted to do something, but then he couldn't, right? You know, like a lot of the people that are often movers and shakers are either not in for whatever reason, but like right now the movers and shakers are you know, there's Hacks, there's Nightclub, all these like Untitled, all these people, right? And like I don't think those people are used to like taking a step further beyond their own tournament.
I guess so.
But,
For me personally, I was doing tournaments like way before COVID, but I can't speak to like the other people. I think that transition is definitely different, especially for like people like Sheridan and Rob, right? Because like their events aren't like normal events. Like, I host a little weekly, put a couple $100 on the line, couple people enter, and then we're good. Their events are like, they're like almost like conventions, low key, bro. Like, it's like a whole fucking ordeal. You take your whole schedule and your week to plan for Genesis or Big House, no matter where you live.
I like sometimes I look at like old pics and stuff. Like, bro, we had a good life, and I mean, I still have a good life, but like, I think COVID puts everything in perspective.
Oh yeah,
where it's like we were living like kings, like just traveling around the world, like having dinners together, like going in hotels, like playing the game, loving it, like being with all our best friends, like the way it was pretty freaking good to be the Crimson Blur. I gotta be honest, it was pretty good to be all of us, and so I'm super excited for it all. But I think like what I'm even more excited for is I think where we're headed is such a good spot, like
I think what happened to our scene, like I did think COVID, like you said, like fuck that aspect up for Melee, but like a lot of things came like perfect timing, bro. Like you think about like rollback, that shit's insane. The rollback teams, the Smash GG Microsoft shit, bro. I thought it was over for Smash GG,
dude.
Bro.
If we lost Smash GG,
you think about all these different aspects of like.
Why does everything break in our way?
We mentioned it. I think
bro.
we mentioned it on an earlier episode, but it's like it's like so ironic that all of these like weirdly fortuitous things end up happening like just at the perfect time when shit gets really bad. And like even when you go back as far as like the 2013 drama, like we have the Evo thing happen, and Samox has the documentary, like all of these things just kind of like fall into place, which is so interesting. On the topic of like the COVID thing, isn't it like super weird to think that Genesis 7 was like a year ago now? Like it was in 2020.
That's crazy.
And we had like Smash Summit 10.
At least for me personally, bro, I live like a mile away from the fucking venue. I just the other day I went to go get some food, and the spot's like right next to the venue, and I drove next to it, and I was just like, damn, that's crazy.
That's what we be doing this weekend, right? That would be us.
Usually when I go over there, it's like Genesis time. I don't really go like downtown like that. Maybe to get some food, right? But the one time I'm there, I'm thinking like, damn, like, usually I just see the lanyards and smashers walking by, like I don't. It's just dead. Like there's no one there. Crazy.
So I
mean, to a point where we probably should get close to wrapping up. I think we've not that I want to. I think the discussion's been really good, but trying to keep it under. Well, not under 2 hours, but close to 2 hours. It's like a feature film. We got a lot of stuff going in. But to finish your thought, Blair, just you were about to say something.
No, I was just saying, like on a hopeful note, like I want to paint you guys a picture, right? It is depressing, the stuff in December that like Nintendo really, the battle lines have been drawn, and there are real repercussions to all that stuff, right? But the picture that's coming, which is we get full land back. We're going to have regular content, added to the game, whether we incorporate or what we do with it, whether, in the custom stages, Wolf, volleyball, all that stuff. It doesn't really matter. What's more is that it's something exciting for us all to play and experience and have fun with. And then we're going to have rank mode. We already have teams getting better. The people we've established a system to reward those people. So Patreon's working real well for them because they like both Uncle Punch and Fizzy have made systems where if you're a supporter, you get advanced features and you get included in betas and stuff. So like everyone's gonna help them out, Control situation is getting better. Like I do think that stuff is good. Maybe the panic control is going to help out. And you know, I feel like we have this online ecosystem of like a series and staple of events that are going to stick around and keep getting better. And then we're going to layer onto it regional and national LAN events. And like for me, like once this clears up, like it will literally be so much better than anything we ever saw before. And I expect, based on the numbers we're seeing and all that stuff, the fact that we haven't actually gone down in viewership, we've gone up post COVID, which doesn't make any sense, by the way. That's like the most mind boggling thing of all time. Tells me that you know, the good times are actually still ahead. You know, like a lot of more melee to be played, but like the best melee is actually still ahead, in my opinion. Like as much as like I get bummed out sometimes, you know, with during COVID, like looking at like Evo 2016 footage and shit, I'm like, damn, that was us. Like, can we really get back to that? Maybe that's the peak, and maybe it'll never be like that again. But then I'm just looking at it, I'm looking at things line up like this. I'm like, nah, we're gonna not only are we gonna get back, but I actually think we're gonna be bigger.
It's like, persistence, man. Honestly, it's persistence. I think it's just when you stick through like persistency and consistency. So it's just not just being willing to constantly do better things, but to always be striving for that.
Yep.
So when we consistently have something on the table that's there, it like that's why I think like weeklies are important, because it like while you were touching on this is like it gives someone a goal, right?
Yep.
So even though there's no rankings and stuff like that, at least you can enter a weekly and be like, oh, I want to make it out of pools or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's just the idea of like that's what makes Melee and like just like fighting games, in my opinion, as a whole, like these like beautiful pieces of art, because it's the goals are not the same for everybody. Like, you know, you just said, like, one person's goal is to get out of pools, one person's goal is to win the whole tournament, probably. But because those goals are different, and they will always be different at varying levels of the game, that's what gives the community character, and that's what gives the community kind of like depth to want to keep at it, because it's like that will always be shifting for as long as they participate in this type of competition. Which is really cool to me. And I think, kind of touching on what Blur just said, it's crazy that, you know, just when you thought it couldn't get any better with a game that we play for over 20 years, or almost 20 years at this point, it somehow does. Like, it still is better. And like it's like an entirely new era of this game that is being entered right now, with all of these things that you mentioned earlier, which is really great. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool to see, and we still get good, man. Like when I was watching Smash Summit 10, I was still at the edge of my seat watching like Zayn. That shit don't get old. I don't care if it's online or offline. I'm gonna watch that shit. You know,
I feel like Mango's like the most interesting player he's ever been, and he's like more passionate than like it's crazy that kind of we're in that space. So I totally agree.
Yeah, COVID. And it honestly, in some aspects, it upped the level, like the quality of the play too. Motherfuckers are at home, like actually just sitting down practicing.
Yeah, there's no distraction either. It's like other than your chat. Hey, real quick, Alston Melee, appreciate the raid, man. Or dudes, all of you. But yeah, thanks a bunch. But yeah, I think we had a couple questions that we could probably just kind of like wrap up with on a lighter note. I don't know if you.
We should skip the questions, to be honest. Just we're already like at 2.5 hours. So it's like I think we saved the questions for another.
That's fine.
There's some that you really think are good.
It's fine. We only got a handful anyway, so.
Yeah, just because I'm picturing people looking at that VOD and being like, 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like that's a long
mini podcast, man.
Yeah, that is, bro. Sometimes them podcasts hit, bro.
Yeah.
Well, again, I actually like longer podcasts usually, but I'm just saying, like, you know,
some people want to, like, you know, watch for a bit and
Yeah, I think the moral of the story, again, and we said it a lot with some of the main topics tonight, was I don't think any of these discussions have an end. Like, I think that this is something that needs to be continuously brought up, rehashed, and kind of like optimized. I don't know, Blur, maybe there's like a document out there that like regulates controllers or something like that. Like maybe we could do that, you know? I don't know if you've heard of anything like that before, but that would be a good first step.
I mean, I feel like I wish we had, as a content creator that's still like, I guess, relatively small, I wish I had more like ways to directly get in touch with all the like top players and community members and do like some level of like surveying and research on shit, because like I feel like we don't have enough moments where like, what does the community think on X issue?
Yeah.
And like it's crazy that we don't have a Discord. Like maybe there is a Discord and I'm just like not in it, but like, you know, where like you can just be like, hey guys, like I have a question for you, or like, hey, we're discussing this. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sure there are Discords where people are like top player net play Discords, but
just
like
to like immediately comment on that, I would argue, not like disagreeing with you at all in any means. I think everything you're saying is completely valid. But Melee, like as a quote unquote esports, is really cool in that, in my experience, the community members are way like leagues more accessible than most other esports. I think, in my opinion, like I can just kind of like, I've been able to just hit up random people and be like, hey, can I call you for an interview, or like, can I get this, that, and the other thing, get your thoughts on something. And it's people are really open to having those conversations. So I would think that like there's room to do it in this community. It's just a matter of getting it started.
It's just that like there's no structure. Like I think I often look at Melee stuff and think like we need to structure things better. We need to organize more. Like that's what I'm looking for. Because I agree. Like it is easy to just be like, hey Blur, do you want to come on the show? Like that's not the hard part. It's more, what do people think about box controllers collectively? The most important people, like, what, something that we haven't talked about, and it's tangentially related to rankings. We haven't had an updated tier list in like more than 5 years, and that's not necessarily important to everybody, but it's like the fact that people still link me a 2015 tier list and be like, this is what the game is like, and I will
die on this hill. That is content, man. The amount of times I can say in my scripts that this tier list has not been updated in 6 fucking years is, I will always have that in everything that I ever say in a video.
There's YouTubers that will make content and then they like kind of know Melee and they'll be like, here's the tier list, and I'll think, please don't post that.
I mean, speaking of content, like you guys are content creators. You guys can make a panel of 25 people, make a new tier list, and that video will get 100K views. Just saying, putting the content out there.
All right, shit. Yeah.
You can make an official tier list, and you guys can do it. And
Blur, I'll make one, and if it does not get 100K views, you and me are gonna have a chat.
No, like
it would though. If it's the official one with a panel, like it would be your biggest video yet. So I don't know what you're waiting on, man.
I guess you're right. I know if I did that, people would go, why the fuck was this person not on it or something? You know what I mean? So I think that's why.
Is that what's stopping you, Radar? Is that what's stopping you?
Yeah, no matter what you do, Radar, you're gonna get shit on.
Bro?
Oh yeah, that's the internet, dude.
You guys are right.
You can have the perfect fucking panel.
Hey, more importantly, Blur, I don't like your tone, man. I don't like you telling me how I'm supposed to be doing this.
Tell me, bro. Tell me, bro. Nah, dude, this is how I get people to do shit, bro. Like, this is my little, because I know there's a part that what I just said right now is gonna stick in your fucking head, and you're gonna end up.
You're right.
It's gonna keep me up for a little bit tonight.
It's like a lot of this shit we're talking about, like rankings and tier lists, like. We don't need the people who did it in the past to do it. Obviously, it'd be fucking amazing if they could. I get why they wouldn't or can't or whatever. People got shit going on, but you could just like make it.
Just do it, bro.
Yeah,
it's Smash community.
It's gonna come with its own set of opinions and stuff.
This shit ain't like copywritten or no shit.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get DFCA for.
I mean, the thing is, like, the problem is, it's just, we gotta account for Wolf at this point. So, with the new patch coming out, everything.
I'm trying to get Mango to answer any message in an orderly fashion. Like that guy is a hard person to reach, but yeah. And those are the kind of people that you want on the panels to some degree, but I agree.
What you want help getting people together. I'll help you.
Yeah, Blur.
Come on,
yeah.
bro.
All right, man.
I mean, we got you on that too. You know,
Let's
definitely.
just-
All right. So
I'm just saying, I'm trying to take the barriers away from you because you're trying to put them in front of you.
I'm not putting any barriers up,
You
bro.
put a new one in front of you. You put a new one in front of you. I'm gonna take another
Listen,
one away.
here's the only takeaway I got from this. If this video does not get 100K views, then
it's all me.
Then you and me, man. You know, it's mitts off next time I see you. That's it.
Let's go.
Let's go, bro. Damn, bro, this video went too poorly, and he gets his ass beat. That's fucked up.
It's the next big fight card, man.
Fight money match, right?
Money match.
Yeah, I need to see that, bro.
Yeah,
that's the
so
next
funny,
big,
bro.
next
One
big
thing
money
that-
match.
I like
But
Turtle.
yeah, even speaking of that, like, even if you have like fight cards like in Melee, even that I saw Golden Guardians
Yes,
did that earlier.
dude,
even that
yes.
should be
Oh
done
my
more.
Speaking
too.
about
Like,
that,
I be
Brandon.
watching a lot of Smack URL battles, and I'll be thinking like, bro, I don't know why you can't do this shit in Melee, like, because sometimes tournaments are great. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes you just want to fucking see a matchup, bro.
That's
like,
right.
dude, fuck the stars
we-
aligning, all that bullshit. Like, yo, let's just like let these two play.
Could we do a Chillin versus Mike Hayes rap battle and then they go into a set?
Oh
Is that a
god.
content piece right there?
Oh
Is
god.
would that be good?
Winner
I'm
winner
not
of
that-
each.
Yo.
Every time someone wins a game, they get to drop one bar of their diss
Oh,
track to
God.
the other person.
And this is a matter. This is a matter of just doing it, but with online, why the fuck haven't we done regional crew battles? Like the problem. we have with-
Absolutely. Oh my god.
We did do it.
Yeah,
Blur?
we did. You did. But it's like
Wait. What did you do? Maybe I missed.
Rona
Maybe I missed
Rumble,
it.
dude. It's like,
The only
They
one who's done regional crew battles, by the way.
Wait,
Well,
come on. That one hurts, Blur. 'cause
I
I
missed
made
it.
the trailer for that.
Fucking
It's like,
dropped. Yeah, let's go.
You guys are. When's it coming? Did it already happen?
It happened like
Last
like in
year.
the summer, bro.
Oh no,
Come
you're talking
on,
about,
man.
dude, bro. We're talking about a year ago now. Like, you think I remember that a year ago?
Don't add another 6 months to their shit. Yeah, that was a year ago. No,
Year
a
ago,
lot
bro.
different from fucking
lot happened,
January
bro.
to June or whatever. Bro,
I'm saying
come
we
on.
should do more of that. We should
I
do
think
more
we
of
should
that.
do it again, yeah. But bro, that happened.
I want NorCal, SoCal. I want New York versus
That happened.
MDVA.
That
Is it
happened.
NorCal, SoCal. Who won?
dude,
Yeah.
Brandon had like Mexico as a crew and Canada in that. It was like insane.
Damn, that shit was dope. I remember it clearly.
Bro, where the fuck? Where have you been?
Okay, all right. I missed
Bro,
this.
I want
all
to
right?
link. Yo, can we link him the VODs? Like,
Yeah, I'm trying to watch this, bro.
hold up.
We should do more of that though.
But
And-
yes,
and
I agree. In
commissions.
general, like cruise is like one of my favorite formats. I think that.
But
is
in online, it makes
vastly
it way
underappreciated.
easier. Online, you always get the best of each
Yeah.
region.
You did
because-
NBVA versus Canada. That was actually a crazy crew battle.
That was, yeah.
Mm.
The one where Zayn almost did a fucking 4-star comeback to win the crew battle. That was crazy. And Blur missed it. It's wild.
Damn.
I tagged
Oh
you.
my
man. Check it.
god, dude. I didn't even see this.
You got
Wait,
some
no, I
homework.
did watch this. I just forgot about
Oh,
it, bro. I did
bullshit,
actually
dude.
watch this.
Don't- it's
No,
like-
no, I was watching it every second. I'm sure of it. I've gotten older, man. You don't know what it's like losing your memory.
Bro, this was like late July. This wasn't that long.
Yeah.
It's physically I am in January 2021, but mentally I am in 2019. It's like
Physically, I'm 80 years old. I'm telling you, I don't remember anything anymore.
I mean,
jeez.
the only thing I'm thinking with this tier list thing, again, and maybe I'm just like this, maybe this is. Don't you think people would just be like, "Who the fuck are you? Like, why have you made it?" Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, dude, we have internet clout now.
No.
Yeah, but that I mean, I guess
subs
that
is
happens
not that
regardless,
much.
I feel like, right?
What do you-
I don't
Plus,
think
if it's prefaced with like, I interviewed the best players in the world as of every
Yeah.
other PR.
Just say
there's
you had a
credibility
panel.
there right away.
Yeah, Mateo was saying that we need to take some FGC those first to 10s. That'd be fire. I would love to see some
Oh,
first
I
to
love
10.
first to
Yes.
That shit would take
Yes.
long, but I'm down to see it first.
No
to
floaties
10.
allowed.
Hey, nothing
Well,
wrong with a
it's
good.
not a piece,
As
bro.
long,
I'm
as long as it's not floaty, you mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
fast
yeah.
fast forward, cool.
first 10.
Yeah.
That's just too much. But I mean, first 10, like Fox Mars or something. Fox
Yeah,
Falco.
I'm in.
whatever. I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
That'd be fire. That's a lot of melee too.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
I mean, there's so many ideas of content, you know, like crew battles, and all
it
this
never
shit.
ends.
And all this shit is easy to set up. It's not like
Yep.
we have to go to venues and shit like normal and like fly somewhere. You could just hit up somebody, hey, send me the code. What's the code? Here's the broadcast code. Boom, go live. Problem solved.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like real quick, we're quickly approaching the 3-hour mark. I don't know if we want to call it soon, but with the whole like ranking thing that we talked about before, that is an infinite well of content. There are so many things that can be done once there is like a ranking structure in place, and I'll leave it at that. But
and you know, just to say, like, I don't think Walt or myself or anyone who makes content, their problem is ideas, right? Like, it's not like we're like, oh man, the well is fucking dry. Like, I feel like the problem is more, man, these videos take like 40 hours and you make $20 off them, and you think, damn, this is like a lot of time to dedicate to this. I'm not saying that I don't like want to do it. Obviously, I've been doing it, but it's just sort of like, I think that's part of the problem is that there's like, we ask why don't
there's no money.
Hey,
we know.
It feels bad when I made a 51-minute video.
Oh my god, like,
it's like, geez.
People have no idea what people make on YouTube. I think it's literally like they think that because you have whatever number of views that you're like rolling in money or whatever. It's bizarre, but
yeah, that's facts.
Yeah, definitely
anyway,
a conversation for another pod, I'm thinking.
There's so much you can talk about in that area. So
but yeah, in any case, I think that's I mean, this was a great show. So I think that's like a really good place to wrap it up on a high note. Again, moral of the story, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to some of these topics that we had on tonight, and I think that we should definitely do this again at some point when the shit eventually hits the fan, and we'll see where everything goes. But
sure.
yeah, in any case, really, really exciting episode again, of course. Blur, Brandon, thank you so much. Zoo, you're here in spirit right now. We love you. Super great episode. Radar, you got anything?
Well, I was just going to say, a great episode, and a great episode comes from great guests. So thanks so much for coming on, guys. I appreciate the idea, Blur, of course. And, both of you guys did a great job. I'm really excited for Brandon's tournament, too. I think you did a great job.
Blur, can we because I wanted some shit I wanted to announce, but
yeah.
I don't know. I had some stuff too.
No, I don't got anything. You go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to announce. So tomorrow we're gonna stream Rollback Rumble Central America. So that should be dope. Y'all should watch that. Twitch.tv Waffle77 at Rollback Rumble for all the times and whatnot. Also on Friday will be Rollback Rumble North America West. Basically, nice way of saying West Coast. $500 pot bonus. Also for Central America too, $500 pot bonus. And then that's not the last thing. Saturday, Rollback Rumble East Coast. Also $500 pot bonus. We announced it while I was doing this. So all the East Coasters, if you want to sign up, everything's free. All these $500. And then we're adding another thing. So later on that Saturday is Rollback Rumble West Coast teams. Since the new Slippi bill got dropped, drop teams, free entry. Just make sure you sync with your partner on Smash EG because we're not doing that shit for you. So, make yourself a team and then you're good to go. And then on Sunday will be East Coast teams. So 4 days of just fucking tournaments in Melee.
And say again, when is it?
Yeah. Okay. So Central America's tomorrow. West Coast singles is Friday. East Coast singles is Saturday, along with West Coast doubles. That'll happen after East Coast is done. And then East Coast doubles will be on Sunday. I know it's kind of confusing. But basically, if there's an event with singles, doubles is the next day. So if you're West Coast, it's Friday, Saturday. If you're East Coast, it's Saturday, Sunday. The East Coast is probably not going to be a consistent thing, at least with singles, because there's just more tournaments there, Hax's nightclub and stuff like that. We don't want to infringe on those events. But since there was nothing this weekend, we figured fuck it, why not? Just throw the event. It's not like
Yeah.
we're going nowhere anyway. So yeah, if you guys want to sign up, just go at Rollback Rumble on Twitter or at Young Waff. I'll be retweeting stuff too as we go. And again, thank you guys for having us. Walt would always help me with shit on like when I randomly hit him up like a day before and shit. I'm sorry.
Hey man, we get it done. That's what matters. So.
And Radar, you're sick. We haven't really interacted, but I always watch your videos, man. The
Thanks,
one where he talks about you to do cool shit, you gotta understand the rules of the game. I was like, facts. Shit was fire. And then Blur, you know, man, you're my guy, bro.
What's up, bro?
You go way back, bro.
Hell yeah.
People don't talk about how we saved Evo 2014 or 13.
Oh, dude, they don't even know.
We definitely saved that Evo. That's facts. I'll take that to great. You in particular, but I definitely helped save Evo.
That shit was hard. That shit was hard.
Got no credit for it. But yeah.
Hey man, you heard it here first. So, but
bro,
yeah,
it was crazy. They had. I'll say this real quick, and then I'll shut up. They had like literally no TVs. Blur drove the TVs there. We literally loaded them all up that night, the day before the tournament.
It wasn't just 2014. That was like the first 4 years or whatever. Three years.
No, yeah, it was like that for a minute. But that Evo, like they were in shambles. Like yo,
they were in shambles, bro. They needed everything.
Yeah, it was bad. But yeah, okay, take the floor, Wall. Sorry, I don't want to.
All right, you good. Don't worry. Yeah, no. Again, yeah, this was one of my favorites so far. Had a lot of fun with this one, and would love to have any of you guys on again. Unfortunately, Zoo, of course, cut short for this evening, so we'll definitely make an effort to bring him back on at a later point. If you guys are interested in catching the VODs for this, you can check it out over on Radar's YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/ssbm radar, I believe, or RadarSSBM.
Well, actually, technically it's youtube.com/micromelee, but you can also just search RadarSSBM.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, as always, VODs will be over on his channel. If you want to catch it live, we go on bi-weekly, or at least we try to. So we'll be back not this week, but the next week, probably on a Thursday, over here, twitch.tv/turndownforwalt, and the existing VOD is here too, but it's going to be cleaned up a little bit nicer on Radar's channel, so watch it there. But yeah, guys, of course, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I had a really good time.
Yeah, man, y'all are the goats. Appreciate you guys.
A lot of fun.
And yeah, we'll be back a couple weeks with another installment of a really, really good podcast that you guys should subscribe to. And eventually, when I get a subscribe button, you guys should do that too. So yeah, as always, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Peace out.
Peace.